I move. Never kept me tripping, never sipping on cool. All this potent potion got me higher than the roof. I hustle all day, I'm working all. I can't slow it down, can't fuck around. No, I'm the one. Now you can't tell me nothing. No, I can't. No, I can't. Keep pushing my luck. Yeah, keep mixing it up. Keep pushing my luck. Keep rolling it up. Yeah, keep rolling it up. Yeah, keep on going up. Hate the way I'm feeling, yeah. Man, I hate the way I'm feeling, yeah, yeah. Sipping whiskey till I'm feeling it. In the studio alone in my feelings again. I swear this microphone know every one of my secrets. I don't be speaking too much. Yeah, everybody cope different, yeah. Maybe I'm doing too much, but I don't give a fuck. Ice in my cup, whole gang in the cut. What the fuck? Ice in my blood, whole thing in the blood. Going up, shawty blow me up, bringing on my phone, pick me up, pull up on me now. I'm way too driving drunk. I'ma take another trip and I'll be alright. I'm just trying to keep my shit together. I've been just doing whatever I think will make me feel better. Yeah, this shit keep me up all night. Yeah, have another one and I'll be alright. Probably be up until the sunrise. Autopilot on that bitch, they sliding on that bitch, gliding on that bitch. Better be showing me love, that's all I need from you, baby. Yeah, show me love. Freezing in the summer, the season been changing you. You stay cool. Cover bits of my hate on you, cause nobody hates you. She want that pay-per-view, I gotta get paid too. Make sure you straight too. Show me your love, keep it on fire. I don't need nothing else. Baby, you something else. Treat me like I'm someone else. I know you know it better. You know you can't find no better. That's why I settle. Bad bitch, she belonging in Kendall average. Put that shit on a pedestal. Ride like a bike, she pedaling. She need to take it like medicine. I ain't no average pedestrian. So I like.
What is up, everybody? We are back with a brand new episode. We are covering the debate. I know we are getting started just a little late. What's up to everybody in the chat? Everybody who is watching on Twitter or on YouTube. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all that fun stuff. Bob, you want to say hello to the peoples, all your fans?
Yes, hello. Welcome. We're about to have a real good debate here, I think, so I'm excited.
It's going to be interesting. Well, with that, let's get a look at what's happening here.
Together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today,
How does that
we
sound
will
for you,
protect
Bob?
our forces and our allies.
It sounds great.
And there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me.
Bob's having some technical difficulties this week.
For a big chunk of my life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially,
I feel like this
launching
dude's been
against the
talking for
United
longer than
States
2
as
minutes.
well.
Yeah, he's been gone.
That for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States.
I will blow you up. I'm gonna blow you up. I'm gonna send you a picture of your house. I'm gonna be very scared.
Strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is.
Oh, now you want to answer the
what
question.
they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops,
All right.
and they received
Chat
traumatic
is
brain injuries,
waking up.
Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies
I mean,
understand that Donald
kind
Trump is
of.
fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady
Yeah, I mean,
leadership
I know.
of
This is
Kamala
the
I know,
first
right,
time I'm really
RJ?
hearing Walz
Senator
say anything,
Vance,
so this
the
is
U.S.
very
did
interesting.
diplomatic
This
deal
is, yeah.
with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is you're running me, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora?
Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as effective responses we can get to save as many lives as possible. And then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you
Dude,
asked
he
about
did the
climate
last
change. I
time.
think this is a very important issue.
He
A lot of
withheld
people are
money because he
justifiably
didn't like
worried
the
about all this
governor.
crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us
He was an
to all
asshole.
say, Donald Trump and I
Like-
support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But
Biden
one of the
doesn't
things
like
that I've noticed
DeSantis,
some of
but
our
he sent
Democratic
him
friends talking a lot
aid
about
money
is
immediately.
a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you
Weird
believe
science.
that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care
This seems
about
this is
getting
going to be a
cleaner
lot
air
more.
and cleaner water,
They're
the
making
best thing
points.
to
They
do
have
is to
their
double down and
their
invest
facts.
in
They're not
American
insulting
workers
each other.
and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Vance is well spoken. I'll give him that so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lawyer, so I would expect him to
Ramble.
be.
He rambles, but he's well spoken.
with this hurricane, and my heart
At
goes
least
out to
tonight.
the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship; they work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover, but we're still in that.
What's
phase where
up?
we need
6
to make
people
sure that
watching on
we're staying
YouTube,
there,
12
staying
people
focused.
on
Look, coming
X.
back to the climate change
Guys,
issue, there's no
like,
Yes, thank you
subscribe.
all very much.
faster
yeah.
and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely.
At some point, somebody needs to explain to me what he's talking about with farmers and 500-year droughts and floods, because no farmer alive today has been around for 500 years. So I don't know. I might just be stupid. So
becoming an energy superpower.
Hey man, you haven't heard of
not just the current, and that's what absolutely makes
ancient
sense. And
ancient
then we
Bill the
start
farmer?
Thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you, Senator. I want to.
Like, is that what he's talking about? Like a farmer's almanac?
I have no idea.
President
It's just
Trump has
very
called
funny.
climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the
Here we
president
go.
has
Climate
said
change
is that if
hoax.
the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said, I think is
his
important to
nuclear
touch upon,
energy
because
policies.
when we talk about
Yeah.
clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels.
Sounded so sad. They are.
The environment cleaner. You've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Senator.
Natural gas, we got to invest more in it.
You know why?
This has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse
your
by the
time
climate.
is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know, and like I said again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our
All right, I get what
#1
you're saying now.
export cannot be topsoil.
And as of right now, it looks like, yes, he is correct. The United States is at a record high
how do we
for
respond
producing
to that?
oil
We're thinking
as of
ahead
right
on
now.
this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico
Here we
border
go.
consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and
Ship
to
'em
use
out.
the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more
Oh,
specific
goodness, yeah.
about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who
Fetty.
struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor,
What you got,
do you
Timmy?
care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is
So
a
no
crisis,
kids are being
this
used as
opioid
drug
crisis,
mules
and
coming
good
across the
news on
border?
this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in
Hmm.
opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Lankford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come
Getting
across
into
the
the thick
border
of it now.
illegally,
This is getting
you've got to
good.
stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now,
Yeah, he's hitting them pretty hard.
The community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, In Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded, it's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well,
Nora?
but
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
We're
because
going to turn now to
he's
the
gonna-
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys
economy.
Yeah,
fact
do it,
check.
JD,
Since
do it.
You're fact checking me. I think it's important to say what's
There
actually
you
going
go.
on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum,
this ain't
or
Donnie
apply
T
for
up there.
parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process.
those laws-
We have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway.
Those
We have
laws
so
have been on
much.
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
We
CBP
wanna have-
One app has not been on the books.
There's been no app on the book since 1990. What the
Gentlemen,
fuck are you talking about?
The audience can't hear you because
An
your mic is
app
cut.
since
We have
1990.
so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining
An
the legal
app.
process. Nora.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each
Now
Oh,
we're
of your
starting to get-
campaigns has released an economic plan.
Yeah,
So let's
JD
talk
ain't
about the
taking no shit.
specifics.
That's
Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled
The
a
lawyer
plan
coming
that
out.
includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So
here we
those of
go.
you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house
Thank you
is
to
much
everybody
more
watching and
than
stuff.
just a
I'm sorry, I
house that
had
can
to-
be traded somewhere.
I was here.
Yes,
I just
thank
did
you.
To where you're at.
friends.
And then
Let's
making
see
sure
here.
that the things you buy every day, whether they be
Government
prescription
compared to
drugs
that Texas
or other
stuff.
things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing.
Pusha T,
but it
what's up,
costs
Pusha T?
$5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect.
He's got
As
bad
far as
grammar. Give
housing
him a
goes,
break.
I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000
He-
child tax credit. We have one in
Trump doesn't know
Minnesota,
how to debate like
reduces,
this.
No.
childhood poverty by a third.
I'll be
We save
honest,
money
like,
in the long
he-
run, and we
Vance
do the
is
right
doing
thing
better,
for
but
families
Walt isn't
and
doing
getting
terrible
businesses off the
either.
ground. The law
He
is
stumbles a
$2
little bit,
now
but
is
he's hitting back.
$5,000 tax credit
This
for
is what a
small
debate should be
increasing that
like.
to $50,000.
They
This
both,
is a
it's
philosophical
literally what they
difference
both
between
said.
Donald
I
Trump
believe you
and
want to
Dick
solve
Thomas,
this
and I'll
problem,
give you this. He
you
took
know,
folks-
and
he
talking
took
like
folks from our
they're not
own folks and said,
insulting
"Here,
each
Richard, I'm
other.
gonna give you a tax cut." He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an
Yeah,
$8
I mean,
trillion
Trump's debate
increase in
style
that
is more
the largest
more
ever.
along the lines of
Now
how he
he's proposing
negotiates things,
a 20%
because he is a
consumption
businessman, and
or
that's
sales
that's
tax
what he
on
knows. He
everything
doesn't know
we bring in.
politics at all. He's
Everyone
not a
against it
politician
believes
by any
that
sense of the
would
word.
be
So I don't
destabilizing
think
it. It will
you'd ever get a
decrease it.
debate
It
like this
will
out of
actually lead to a
Donnie T.
recession. Look, this
I
is
definitely would expect
where
this
we're
from
going.
Vance. So
Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their
But yeah,
fair
credit
share.
to Waltz.
When
He
you do that, our
isn't as
system
rattled
gets
as I
better,
thought he would
more
be,
people are
or
participating in it,
hasn't
and
really
we'll
let
have the things that they need.
I think he's
Senator, I
let
want to
Vance
give you
like
a moment
walk
to
all over
respond
him.
on that,
But
but similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump
Yeah.
plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by 5.8 trillion. My question is
Woo!
the same for you. How do you pay for all that
And he
without
did
ballooning the
have
deficit?
increased the
I'll give you 2
deficit
minutes.
a lot.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris
Cole, are you
proposes
not
to do,
entertained?
and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot,
we are
peace and
talking
security
about the
all over the
deficit.
world. So when people say that Donald
Your
Trump's economic plan doesn't make
Trump's
sense,
presidency
I say,
also
look
had
at the
some of
record.
the
He
highest
delivered
deficit
rising take-home
as
pay for
well.
American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to
Ugh.
that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, in the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's
it's
all you
a
want.
problem with the tax
Give a
code.
minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us.
Get him better. I'm gonna whip your ass when I get home.
Stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China.
Yep.
So the rhetoric is good. Much of
While
what
they're
the
both
Senate
talking about this on the entire East Coast, we have a dock worker strike going on
my
right now.
communities, and we talk about that. But
So for every day that strike goes on, that's about a
undercutting
week
right to
delay in
collective
goods that we're
bargain.
getting.
We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're pleased that we bring
I like
those
that little
home.
look Katie
The issue
just
is
gave
Donald
us.
Trump
Huh?
talks about it. Kamala Harris has a record 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice what Governor Walz just did is he said,
I mean,
first of all, Donald
these
Trump
both are very
outsourcing the
polite
experts.
guys.
And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
No, that's a
show
gross
that he
generalization.
did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I
No.
think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on
Okay.
healthcare then.
Senator
This
Governor,
is
thank
this
you.
is the thing though. He
We
keeps
have a
saying
lot to
this
get to
common
ahead,
sense wisdom
gentlemen, on
tactics.
many topics.
That's
but
great.
Right now, I want to talk about
What the hell does
personal
that mean?
qualifications.
What is the
Vice
backing
President is
behind
often
that?
the
What is the
last voice
statistics, the
the
science?
president hears
What the fuck
before
is common
making
sense
consequential
wisdom?
decisions.
Since like you
We wanna
said,
ask
we have
you
people
about
with
your leadership
PhDs. That's great.
qualities.
We need common
Governor
sense
Walz,
wisdom. What?
you
Well,
said you were
it's like he
involved
said,
in
common
the
sense to
Middle
not
East
send
Peninsula protest
manufacturing
in the
jobs
spring of
overseas and to not kill the
1989.
American
But
industrial
Minnesota Public
worker.
Radio and other media
Okay.
outlets are reporting that you
You know, and when you
actually
have issues,
didn't
especially like
travel
today,
to
right
Asia
now, with
until
the
August of
seaport
that year.
strike, with all these dock
Can you
workers
explain
trying to
that
get better pay in
discrepancy?
that,
You're
Yeah,
gonna-
well, and
you
there's folks out
you
there
fuck
that
up
didn't
the
get a
supply
job for
chain. And
this.
when you
Look,
do that, it
I
makes
I
it
grew up
harder
in
for
small
stores to
rural
stock their shelves and
Nebraska,
people to get goods.
town of 400.
And when that happens,
You rode your
you
bike with
can't
your
just keep
buddies to school,
relying
right? Come
on,
on, and I'm proud of
oh,
Minnesota.
well, you
I
know,
joined the
maybe
National
we'll
Guard
get
at
it from
17.
over there eventually when they get this
Program was
going.
fun. And then
But
I
that's way okay. It
used the
needs a
GI Bill
balance. It
to
doesn't mean we
become a
get rid
teacher.
of those
Passionate about it, a young
PhDs. Like
teacher.
those,
No,
we still
you-
need
you-
those
I got the
numbers as
opportunity
statistics,
in
but
the
we
summer
need
of
them to
89,
be in
to
unison
travel
to,
to
like,
China.
yeah,
35
America
years
comes
ago,
first.
be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth. to
Goddamn
China.
right, Cole.
The issue
America.
for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress,
I don't know if
we
that's
were
a
almost bipartisan
raving
people.
endorsement of
There's
yourself.
nothing
I'm a
like
knucklehead,
Congress.
and
We
these
cut down
idiots elected me into
41 veterans
Congress.
benefits.
Uh,
And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get
believe
this
it.
right. I will
I
say
believe it.
more
Like, he's
than
a people
anything.
person. Like,
Many
but
times
they
I can
both
talk
seem
a lot.
genuine.
I will
I
get
believe
caught up
Vance
in the
too, that they
rhetoric,
want to help the
but
country and
being
do
there,
these
the
things
impact
in
it's
the
Yeah,
right
I
way.
mean, this is a total 180 from
I-
every other debate
Yes,
we've gotten.
this
since.
isn't like Kamala
Kamala
and Trump telling lies that what sounds good. I genuinely believe both of them.
praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the
No, just-
discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer
No.
and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I said.
Oh, no.
In Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've said, you've been asked many times, you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while
Yeah,
he
listen,
was
for us,
president.
it's proven he is
Writing
not a
to
good
someone in
debater.
2020, quote,
He's not a good
Trump
debater.
thoroughly failed to deliver
No,
his
like he said
economic
himself, he's a knucklehead.
You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many
All
of your policy
politicians are,
stances to
so
align
I
with
will tell you
he's
this and give you
gonna
my
become
perspective
vice
is that
president.
if this
Why should
helps
Americans trust that
Vance
you will
and
give
Trump in
Donald
any
Trump
sort of
the
way,
advice
she is
he
not
needs
going to be happy
hear,
with this man.
and not just the
Guaranteed.
advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why
Good
I've done
answer.
so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration, the first round, if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching
I
Donald
agree
Trump,
with this,
they
yeah.
couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in
Because
particular.
when Vance does his
Margaret,
speeches
because
at campaign
to
rallies
just
and stuff, it's
accuse
weird.
this of being a national
But here
sales tax.
he's out
Look,
doing
the one thing
Waltz.
and,
Meanwhile, Waltz is very well spoken.
praising Joe Biden,
his
but the
speeches.
one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing.
He's not annihilating
The
him.
most pro-worker part of the Biden administration. It's the
He's not
one
the
issue that
best
Kamala
debater,
Harris-
but you know
I
what?
wouldn't say he's annihilating
This is a
him,
good
but I would
debate.
say he is doing
This
better.
is
If you're trying to
he's doing
employ
better,
slave
absolutely.
laborers in China
Absolutely,
at
he's
$3
doing
a
better.
day,
But this is a
You know-
good debate, and this is how it should be.
And there were rumors for days that, that was saying Walls was very nervous about this. He doesn't seem too nervous at all.
Yeah.
A little shaky here or there, but
You can tell
Sure,
he's
your
not.
time
He's
is
not a
up. Nora?
confrontational type
Now to the
person.
issue
Like
of
he's not.
reproductive rights.
Even like you said,
Tomorrow,
his
after Roe
answers
versus
are.
Wade
They're
was
not doing.
overturned,
You
signed
know,
a
like
bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when
which
it
is
comes
fine.
to
That's
abortion.
fine.
Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatment. For so many of you out there listening, me included, Infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is well, the states will decide what's right for Texas.
I mean,
might
I
not
wouldn't
be
say
right
he's
for
blamed
Washington.
Trump for everything.
That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy
That was a good
monitoring agency?
That's a
So,
good
Nora,
response.
certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes
I don't think
very
medical
messy
health
and
care
divided country.
is a
Yeah,
policy that
Respond and
Yeah,
also
I get a video for you. Whatever they're saying about people not being able to get health care for abortions is just fucking fear mongering. There was a lady at the Senate hearing committee that went over all this, that got asked all these questions of if you have an abortion, if you need one, is it illegal? No, they all have to provide medical care. Never heard of dumber shit ever.
You had to travel a long distance.
That is
Because
one situation.
this isn't when they talk about abortion, they're not aimed at people who are incest. They're not talking to those people. They're talking to the women who use abortion as a second way of contraception, and that's just fucking ridiculous.
And you're right.
Yes,
It really
to a
is.
to a certain extent, but those stories that Walt's mentioned are still true.
There's a very
Where these people were wanted, they didn't want to have an abortion, they wanted to have the child. But
And all they
something
should have done
happened,
was go to the hospital.
They needed sepsis, all this thing, and because of the law, they couldn't get. And now, like he said,
there
the
is-
woman has sepsis, and now may not be able to have children in the future.
But there is no law that prevents you from getting a medical necessary abortion. Zero.
I think referring to
Zero in any state. Search it up.
Obviously, something stops this woman that they wouldn't allow her.
Yeah, when you hear the Democrats constantly saying, well, you can't get an abortion, they're going to arrest you, they're going to throw you in jail, they're going to put you on a registry, I'd be fucking scared too.
Abortion regime anywhere in the entire
Guarantee
world.
So
she
you're saying
never
she
even went
didn't
to the
even,
doctor.
she didn't even try?
I guarantee you she didn't.
First of all, I
Yeah.
never supported a national ban. I did during when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator.
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong
about? That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
So how is it written?
this advice on a lot of things,
Right,
that
so, yeah.
getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on.
But
We're going to be
does
right
the law
back
say?
with much more of the CBS News Vice Presidential
From what
debate.
my understanding is, Minnesota has 0 restrictions on abortions. But yeah, we got a good debate going on here, man. Definitely a good
It
one.
is a good debate. It is a good debate. Now, the only thing I wish Waltz would have done there was say exactly what the law does say. If he says it doesn't say that, okay, fine. What exactly does it say then?
Yes. He had an
you know,
opportunity to really hit him back there with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as far as, some of the other things, I thought Vance did a pretty good job as far as, like you said, addressing that, his party needs to do a better job of getting the trust there. Because, look, Planned Parenthood, yes, is used mainly for abortion and other things, but they are used for other things for women's care and other things like for women's health care, checkups, and other things like that. They provide these free services as well that are not a part, of the abortion type thing and stuff. And so there are, that has to be looked at as well and stuff. So for me, I think that, yes, it shouldn't be. And we've talked about before earlier in another podcast that, I don't think any good doctor would be going, let's replace birth control, with abortions, getting it done over and over and over, because that's going to take a toll on the body. Can't be good for you. All these different things, like, that doctor should lose his license and stuff if he is, so there's definitely some things I think that sure, need to be looked at. But I do think, for the most part, like you said, this is a medical issue. It's up to the woman, and it goes on her medical record, if she does have. So if she's continuing to try to do this, or like I said, pull this thing, like,
Yes.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think Vance is definitely doing better. He is hitting the questions well and stuff, and you can tell Waltz is nervous. He's not a very good debater and stuff, but
Yeah,
he's not terrible.
He's not terrible. No, he's not as bad as like I said. He's definitely not as bad as I thought he was going to be at all. I thought it was going to be actually more of a mess. I honest to God almost thought that by the end of this, like tomorrow, she'd be announcing a new running mate. Like that's how bad I thought this might have gone for him. But no, he's holding his own. But Vance again. Yeah, Vance. I think Vance is edging him out a little bit. He's attacking on things like that last question, asking him specifically, well, what does the bill say? And that kind of stammered him. So, and again, I did like his answer as well about how Republicans need to work better to gain and build the trust with women again. That's a great answer. I just think it like I said, it's weird because we're so not used to seeing two people just actually have a debate where they're both talking to each other and nobody's screaming or calling names or anything like that. But this is, to me, it's been one of the most fun and interesting debates I've seen in a while because it's civil.
Yeah,
and I enjoy that because we got a guy like Vance who's very well spoken, and yeah, it seems like they kind of flip flop where Vance is kind of a little looser and not really, I don't know if it's focused or whatnot at a rally, but then when it comes to a debate, he's on like Donkey Kong. Whereas Vance is kind of the opposite, not really good at the debate, but at the rally, he'll get you hyped, he'll get you excited, and all that stuff. So it's a pretty interesting little dichotomy here to witness between the two of them. So
yeah. Well, with that, we do have a special guest joining us, just for tonight. My other half, Mr. Bradley, has joined the stream.
What's up, queers?
Wow. Yep, that's Democrats for you, folks, right there.
And he's been removed from the stream. Was Bradley, everybody. Thanks for coming, babe.
Okay, so I'm building that wall tomorrow. Cool.
See, we already lost Cole. Let's see. All right, looks like we are back here, people. All right, let's see what we got.
Now to America's gun violence epidemic.
Okay, here we go. Another good question.
For children and teens in America.
Does that sound good for everybody?
Senator Vance.
Yeah.
You oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of
the last school shooter kid,
beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Waltz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now,
isn't it nice to see them agree? Like I really like seeing that.
This epidemic of violence. The growth,
like I said earlier, where they both said, like, I believe you want to solve this issue.
Illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence.
Have we?
This idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance
Bring back dueling.
hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that.
Let's go back to the
That's
Hamilton
not
days.
far enough when we know there are things
I want
that
them to
work.
sing while
I
they
spent
do it
time
too.
in Finland
Bring back
visiting
jousting.
schools.
Hey,
They don't have
we can go that. We can go see
even
that.
though
You're
they
right.
have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep
Yeah,
your
but how many of
firearms,
those shootings
and
are
we can
happening
make
outside
a
of America,
difference.
though?
We have to. If you're listening tonight, this
Right.
breaks your heart.
Senator.
And ladies and
First of all,
gentlemen,
really,
I do want to
17-year-old
bring
witnessed
on
shooting.
a
I'm sorry about
third
that.
guest.
I appreciate it. Okay, Christ have mercy. It is
That's a nice
awful.
scene for France
And
to
I
say. A
appreciate
third
what
guest
Tim
tonight
said
joining
actually
us,
about Finland,
Rosales
because I do
Comics,
think it
everybody.
illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes.
Yeah, and it got way worse after
Another
COVID, my
reason
guy.
why we have such a bad gun violence
Well,
problem.
hey, at
but I
least
do
he's
think it's a big
admitting it.
piece of
That's not something a lot of
Another
Republicans
driver
admit.
of the
I
gun
give him
violence
that.
epidemic, especially
No, I
the
know.
fentanyl
I'm just saying it
kids,
got way worse
doesn't
after
earn
COVID.
as many
That's
headlines,
a
but
huge
is this
reason why
terrible
it's
gun
gotten so
violence
worse.
problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad
Well, now we
guys,
definitely
put 'em
lost
away,
Cole,
and
so
take
thanks,
gun offenders
Rosales.
off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy.
He
for a long time.
became
They used to
friends
teach
with
gun
school
safety.
shooters.
I'm of an age where
Well, he
my
messed.
shotgun was in my car, so
Poor
I could
guy.
pheasant hunt after football practice.
Oh,
That's not where we live today.
That's
And
a horrible
several
mistake to
things I
make.
want to mention on
you
this.
made it. Oh,
Talking about cities and where it's at, the number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides.
I do
And
feel
we
a
have
little
an
bad for him.
epidemic of children getting
That-
guns
Yeah,
that
and
was a
he
big
needs to. It's
And
not
so
too late to correct
we
that. It's not
have-
too late.
he's
Let's
nervous.
look
You
at
can
all
tell
the
he's
issues.
nervous. But he meant you. We know what he
I'm
meant
sure
to
folks
say.
have health
We
care and
know
all
what
that,
he
but I
meant to
want to
say.
be very careful. This
Yeah, he meant to
idea
say
of
their families.
stigmatizing mental
Yeah.
health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up
Yeah.
doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns.
He was an
It's just the
NRA
guns,
guy.
and
He
there are
just
things
said
that
that.
you can do about
Yeah,
it.
and
But
I
do
would
think that
disagree
this
with him
is
here.
one-
It's never
I think
just
this
the
is a healthy
guns, because the gun
conversation.
never just walked
I
up into
think
a
there's
school and
capacity
shot
to
people.
find
It's a-
solutions.
I
I
think
do-
that's always a
that
terrible
work.
thing to say.
Protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Well, as I said, yeah, I think
Let's
it's
turn now
those
to the
definitely
top
those
contributor to
assault weapons
inflation.
like that.
The high cost of housing
Let's talk about
and
inflation.
rent.
Let's go.
There's a shortage
boy.
of more than 4 million homes in the United States,
Oh boy.
and that contributes.
Now this is where Vance can really jump on him and drill him.
Here's where I'm
How
gonna
are you
really
gonna
start
get the
start
money
drinking.
for all these houses?
$25,000 down
Yeah,
payment
right.
assistance for first-time home buyers
Here we go.
and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising? And what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs.
I don't know Cole, but he sure loves his eyeliner.
Competing with American
homes
is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build a house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But
Jesus.
Senator, where are you going to seize the
Can I have it?
Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's again blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors.
He's so nervous. You can tell he does not debate. He even like, sorry.
I know.
Well,
He felt bad.
At least he's being respectful about it, though. Not just interrupting them like these people
really
would.
drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to
Pocahontas took place in America, right? We are the best.
Everything exactly
Lewis
as
and
Kamala
Clark.
Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
Let JD respond.
True.
I can tell. But Nora?
Yeah, I want a one-on-one between them. Fuck these bitches. I want them to just talk.
Of healthcare.
Honestly, I feel like they could themselves handle a very civil discussion without anybody. I trust them both at this point.
I think that would be worse for Walz. I don't think I think that would make him 100 times more nervous just being one-on-one.
I think the three of them would have a better debate without Walz.
Exactly. Like, and regardless of what happens, I want to see these two. I can see these two working together in office regardless of what happens.
With pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concept.
I don't know why you like to take a lot of Republican things.
He did say, I don't know the regulation. That's what Walz said. He said that with his own mouth. I don't know what the regulation is. I know what it is. State regulation.
He said Congress makes it. It's not.
He said he don't know the regulations. He don't know which ones
trying to say.
President. And again, he has
No, he was asking you. No. That's not what he said. He's asking which regulations.
He also asked
Kamala Harris's leadership.
So it was more of a sarcastic thing.
It was not. It was not. Couldn't make it
absolutely. It was very much a sarcastic thing of like which regulations, because I deal with them. That's what he said.
And nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice, and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really
careful. We'll all roast you on here,
which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do. But I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work.
Listen, both the Democrats and the Republicans like to brag that healthcare sucks, and neither of them have done anything to make it better. Obamacare is trash. Trump didn't make it better. Biden hasn't made it better.
In place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not
download
true.
the app.
A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher. And he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the...
don't act like you guys don't sit over there and say this is going to happen if she's president. Don't even try to act like that, bud.
And the question about this...
Hey, but you know what? He's not bringing it here.
Piece of this.
That's what's important.
Fought tooth and
You
nail.
can say all that.
saying,
I'm
well,
criticizing
Americans should
for
be free to
talk,
do
but
this. Well, then
So
what
you
happens
think the
is
individual mandates?
Oh yeah, you can say it off camera and not
think
mention
the
a
idea
debate
of
like a
making
little
or
sure
bit.
that
no,
the
It's
statute
fine.
is broad enough to cover everyone,
but
that's the only
and I'm
reason
Hang on a
it's
criticizing.
second. I want to hear
when
this.
it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA
Shut up, Bob. This is
where
my.
we get people out. Look,
I love
It's
you.
important.
people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we
Smaller
incentivize
insurance
people to be
companies
in the
got
market, when we
eaten
help
up by the
people who
larger
might not be able
insurance
to afford
companies.
it get there,
They
and we make sure
decimated
then
the
when you
healthcare
get sick and
industry
old, it's
when
there
they
for you. Because I
did
heard
the
people say, well,
ACA.
I don't
They
want
also
to buy
said
any Medicare
you
or
have to
whatever. Good
pass
luck
it to
buying
read
healthcare
what's in
once
it.
you get past
Nobody knew
70.
what was in
So
it.
look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank
She
you.
did. She
Margaret,
did negotiate
we're-
the drugs.
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret.
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said
It's because
that
of the repeal of Roe
win
v.
both the
Wade.
White House and Congress. This is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick.
So Kamala wants to pay everybody medical leave. She wants to pay for everybody's insurance. She wants to pay people to be able to buy a house. She wants everybody to be on government assistance.
For the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those.
I do need a bit of more of the know-how,
wealthiest.
but I'll be
He's
honest.
willing to say, bust
You
those
can
unions
go
up
on her
and do
site. Me
whatever.
and Bob
What we're
examined it,
saying is the economy works
and
best
it goes
when
into
it works for
detail
all
as
of
to
us.
how
And
she
so
would
a
do
paid
it,
family medical
where
leave
she's
program, and
taking
I will
money
tell you,
from,
go to the families,
how it
or
adds
go
to the
to the businesses
deficit.
and ask them. As far as
It is a
child
detailed
care on this,
plan, far
you
more
have to
detailed
take
than
it
you
at both
find
the supply
anything on
and
the
the
Trump
demand
side.
You can't expect the most important
Well,
people
a lot
in
of
our
that
lives
stuff is
to
from
take
the
care of their
Trump site.
children or our
It,
parents
it, it
who
can't
pay
be
the least amount of
because
money.
you
And we have to
because I
make it
promise you
easier
those
for folks
details
to
are
be
not
able
on the
to get
Trump. I'm
into that
talking like
business and then to
a
make sure that folks are able
almost
to pay for that. We were
100-page
able to do it in
presentation
Minnesota, and I'm still
document
telling you this.
of
We were
the
listed as the
how,
best state. We're still
where
in
we're going to
crisis
do
on
it,
this.
how we're
A
going to
federal
pass it.
program of paid family and medical
You know,
leave and
Trump
help
has
with this
points.
will
He's got
enhance
bullet
our
points on
workforce,
his
enhance
page.
our families,
He doesn't have
and
that.
make it easier to have the
It
children
took
that you
Kamala
want.
forever to do it, but
Governor,
she
your
got it.
time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their
I'm going to join on
employees
my
while
laptop
they're
real
home
quick.
taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats too have worked on this issue, and I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator, and I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice.
Waltz has also said the same thing. He has worked with Republicans because, look, even before any of this.
Of course, Tim and I have been on the
he had a good bipartisan
relationship. 7 or 8
relationship.
weeks, and one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is
both of them do. I trust them both.
They don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on childcare as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the childcare shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy is growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square. And that's all I've said. And that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle.
I mean, that's nice and all, but like, let's be honest. You've got a couple.
Our fellow Americans.
Democrats have a lot
engaged in censorship.
Ex-Trump supporters that are now supporting
She's done it over a number of other issues, and that to me is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about touting that Dick Cheney has endorsed you is really like the greatest thing ever, but sure.
Okay, outside of Dick Cheney, but people like Mitt Romney, other people, very credible Republicans.
Mitt Romney was never behind Trump. He was always working behind Trump's back. A lot of the people that are now endorsing Kamala Harris were all working against Donald Trump while he was in office.
Not really, because some of those people were also working for Trump, like his ex-attorney general or some of these other people.
Yes, and they were working against him on the inside, is what I'm saying.
So he's got a poor taste in judgment?
I think what's going on here is that the people in Congress and in Washington are corrupt. They're two sides of the same coin, and this a-hole got in the office and exposed them for what they were.
And Mike Pence
corrupt.
I don't know, because again, these were all guys that were behind him. Where they started to separate was when he started to wanted devout loyalty. And we'll talk about it a little bit of this after and stuff. But yeah, we'll bring that up after.
And then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter.
That's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to imprison Donald Trump.
Hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later.
That's not true.
In the same boat. I will tell you this.
Like that?
When this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
It started in 2016. Hashtag not my president.
But it
first of
did start
all,
like that. I
it's
mean,
really rich.
It did
for
start like
Democratic
that.
leaders to
He was
yeah,
the-
but not go to the cap.
democracy
Hashtag not my
when he
president, but not go to the
peacefully gave
Capitol,
over
take it
power
over.
on January the
He
A,
6th.
didn't do
a
that.
sarcastic thing
For
of
250
Twitter.
He
years in this
didn't
country.
do that.
We are going to
And
shake
you know
hands
that's
after
you know
this
that to be
debate and
true.
after
He
this
did not do
election.
that.
Of course, I
He,
hope
he
that we
did
win,
certain
and I think
things.
we're
We'll
going to
get to
win. But
that
if
too.
Tim Walz is
It's
the
gonna be a
next
fun
vice
afterwards
president, he'll have
conversation.
my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants.
I mean, even Hillary Clinton was saying he
Remember
was
that
an
for years in
illegitimate
this country,
president.
Democrats
So that
protested
what
the
they were
results
saying
of
is that he
But
stole
she
the
still gave
election.
him.
in
She
2000.
still.
said he
She was
stole
the
the
first
election.
thing.
Donald Trump had
She
the
They
still
all
was the
did.
first one to turn it over.
Vladimir
She was
And
the
then they
first one to
turn
come
around
out
and
and say
claim that he's doing the same thing.
$500,000 worth of Facebook ads.
he won. She
This
won
has
the
been
general
going on
election.
for a
He's
long
lost
time.
both
And if we
general
want to say that
elections.
we need to respect the
Thank
results of
God
the
we got
election,
an electoral
I'm on
college.
board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for
We
this.
got here through fear mongering, buddy.
Massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship
On
to
both
stop
sides.
people from threatening to kill someone.
There were fear mongers on both
That's not-
sides,
That's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought
except
up.
for the Nazis. I
just
disavow
think
the Nazis.
everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of
There it
Donald
is,
Trump's
threat on
inability to say.
democracy. That's
He
what
is
gets
still
people shot.
saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the
masks.
governor does
That's
have the
not
floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to
Please.
respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there.
I mean, look, yeah, that's
and
not
now
his
again, and
thing.
this- I'm pretty shocked
He
by
wasn't
this.
the one
He
telling
lost
fucking
the
Mark
election.
to do that.
This is not a debate.
No,
It's not-
it was
it-
his
it-
running
it-
mate's
it-
administration that was doing
others
that.
in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision,
We'll talk about
to
that
certify
too,
that
because
election,
I think that
that's
was
why
bad,
Mike
but I
Pence
think
isn't on this stage.
there's something
What
there.
I'm concerned about is where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News
All right.
presidential debate continues.
Where's this going?
So, with that,
Goes to 11, I think.
yeah, I know that. I think they got a whole other thing, but with that, as we kind of have our panelists here, first of all, guys, welcome. You guys are officially our first guests on the podcast. So, welcome, babe. Welcome, Rosales.
Wow, you call me Colonel Bradley?
Hey now. Hey now. Listen, you keep sending me those links on Sunday mornings. You may get other stuff. No, I'm kidding. But no, hey guys, thank you so much for
Get that picture I sent you?
I did, yes. Yes. But first of all, as you guys know, as everybody on this show, first of all, thank you to all of our X watchers who are tuning in. If you are on X and want to join in the chat, want to join in the conversation, we do bring up the chat messages and stuff. So head on over. Yes, babe.
Can I please bring this one up? This made me laugh.
What?
Democrats.
Oh, yes. Yes, Democrats, yes. And welcome. This is a first-timer. Welcome to the show, Procasterius. I'm going to butcher. I'm going to call you Pro.
Procasterius.
I'm going to name you Pro. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. As you kind of know, we pride ourselves as this show being all points of view. Obviously, me and Bob are voting for different people, have very different opinions and stuff. But that's the point, is this idea that we can't have a conversation, that we can't be friends. Hell, we have a podcast together with hours of conversation to prove against that. And I've had great conversations with Rosales off stream and stuff, which is why I'm incredibly happy that you're here, man. I know it's kind of last minute. I saw you in the chat, and I'm like, well, shit, might as well just invite him on and get you on here. And babe, I know you're kind of more with me on the left-leaning side and stuff, and so we kind of have a good balance here.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm more
independent, but you, as of in this election, definitely leaning more left. And in
this election, yeah.
You know, the thing about it is that you know, Elon Musk is not a conservative. He's a centrist, and the party has gone more and more left than it has anything else. So a lot of people, even including Bill Maher on occasion, will get roasted for his takes in calling out the left, simply because
absolutely,
he's been centrist for forever, and he's not changed his thing. It's just that the party has gone in a totally AOC direction, and people don't recognize it. And then, you know, people are falsely demonized for doing that, you know.
We talk a lot on this show about rhetoric. We talk a lot on this show about the extremists of both sides. I very much, this show is very much kind of modeled in the Bill Maher sense, just without the comedy, I guess. Even though there's some moments here and there.
But, a lot less weed on my side.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's the idea that, you know, like Maher, we're going to have people from all across all sides of the aisle. It's a conversation. You know, things may get intense and stuff, or a little heated, but that doesn't mean we don't respect each other's ideas. That doesn't mean we aren't friends. That doesn't mean, you know, any of that type of stuff. So yeah, with that, Rosales, what do you think of the debate so far? How are you feeling about this? We might have lost Rosales on that.
No. I was on another website real quick, and
no, you're fine.
Didn't unmute my microphone. But what I think is that Kamala Harris found somebody who is absolutely more inept than she is.
Interesting.
And he's old. He's old. I mean, come on. Can we get rid of the old people? You know,
he is old. He's now. How old is he?
He's the same age as she is, but he's got a lot more writing years.
Which is 60. Yeah, he definitely looks older. He looks older. Yes, absolutely.
You know who he looks like? He looks like Don Rickles.
But he's still there. I just, I just don't think he's the best debater, coming from somebody that I love debate. I went to, when I went to school, I went to debate class. Oh, we'll pause this conversation. We'll see you guys after this. So, yeah.
Thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who
I think these are closing statements.
I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters.
Got to give it to Kamala. She stuck the whole time and didn't have to take all the pee breaks.
Of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country, and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day.
Yes.
Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
All right. Well, that was the vice presidential debate. Oh, they did shake hands. They are speaking afterwards. Actually, I'll bring it up because it looks nice. They're shaking hands. They're talking like friends. All right.
Wives.
The wives are coming up. Oh wow, they're meeting. The wives are meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's definitely nice to see two cordial
This
people
is
debate.
so much more civil than any debate that I've seen.
Yeah.
They're
Probably been the most
still
civil debate
talking.
I've seen in years.
They're still talking. He just patted his shoulder. Look at that.
Most civilized debate I've seen like the whole time I've been alive.
Shocking.
Yeah, but listen, fellas, I don't want to hold you up much longer. Unfortunately, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to get going to bed so I can incubate myself and feel better. So when we come back next week around, do this talk, I could be more lively and more energy over here.
As always, we appreciate you being here. You are the best co-host. I appreciate you, man. And yeah. Do you want to give any quick thoughts?
Yeah,
your overall quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought JD Vance. I thought he out-edged Walz in this debate on substance. Anyways, I would definitely give it the advantage to Vance over Walz. The thing I see coming next for the Democrats after this debate, because realistically through this debate, if it's just policy to policy, I feel like they don't have much to go on. So I feel like you're going to keep hearing a barrage of the January 6th. J.D. Vance said he wouldn't certify the election. That's pretty much what I think you'll be hearing from the Democrat side for a while now, up until the election. But again, most Trump voters don't give a shit anymore. So, but we'll see. This was very peaceful, very cordial. Not like I was expecting it all, but
right.
Overall, I thought it was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree. I definitely have. Definitely have some thoughts as well. But man, as always, I appreciate you being here. And yeah, we'll be back next week together and stuff. We're gonna do just a quick little after show discussion and everything. But Bob,
yeah,
and make sure, guys, if you aren't, follow Bob in the description below. He's always putting out his thoughts and stuff on Twitter and his replies and stuff, and I'm enjoying them. So, yeah, love you, Bob.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
And Bob has
Thank
a
you,
new
guys.
segment on Sundays called Bob Knows Sports. So
Yes.
there's that.
On the Super
right.
Sunday wrap-up, absolutely. So we'll get back into that this Sunday.
Hey, guys, can you tell my wife went and saw midget wrestling today?
Yeah, I could tell. Nice mask. But thank you, everybody.
Love it.
Thank you, Twitter. Thank you, YouTube. I appreciate you, Austin, as always. I love this, and I'll talk to you soon.
Of course. We'll see you, brother.
Okay, Bob.
All righty, guys. Well, let's get into it. First of all, I just see the mask, so I have to go Nacho, and that's now that's over with. But yeah, okay. So Rosales, obviously, you thought this was not good for Tim Walz. You think that he was worse than Kamala in her debate?
Well, I think his prostate got in the way for one thing. He definitely had to take a couple of breaks in order to relieve himself. I'm sure that's what that was all about. I mean, even Kamala, you got to praise her for standing up the entire time. She wanted chairs in her debate, and she stood at her tiny little life-size podium, and she held her own. So there's that.
Yeah. Bradley, what did you think? What did you think of the debate tonight?
I thought, like I do agree with Bob, like Vance does have the advantage over Walz in this. Even though I do, like Walz a lot. I'm not a huge fan of JD, but he actually showed me that he's a much better speaker than Trump in every sense of the word, like a much better cohesive speaker than Trump. And I can see, him possibly running for president one day, just how well he speaks and
True.
how well
Honestly,
he approached, like Bob said, like I had no idea how this.
He's never shown this in his campaign rallies. He has not shown this.
Well, and
he's shown a kind of awkwardness in his campaign rallies.
Yeah,
he
and
did not show that tonight.
Yeah, and it's kind of off-putting. Like, you can take these videos out of context, like him at donut shops and them being weird about it. Like, maybe they don't know who the hell he is, or, he's just an awkward guy, So, whatever. I'm not judging, like, out of context videos. Like, I don't know.
Well, and it's different, too, because, right, he's speaking to a crowd, whereas tonight it was him, Walz, and the moderators. No debate. It was an intimate thing.
And, I appreciate him calling out the moderators for that, but I'm also gonna laugh when people are claiming that it's the Dems controlling. Like I'm honestly like kind of over this like fact checking complaint too, because like yes, these news channels are gonna fact check. Like those are the moderators. That's the news channel's prerogative, right? Find me one news channel that's actually in the middle that will not fact check any side at one point or another. Like you won't be able to at this point in time. Like that's just how these
Fox News is going to do it to Kamala. ABC is going to do it to Trump.
Exactly. Like it goes both ways, which
exactly.
is but it's going to happen.
Which is why I'll tell you what. This was back in 2016. I was all for. Two people were contending. We're saying I'll moderate. That was Bill Maher and Joe Rogan. We're saying it. And I was like, you know what? I think that's not a bad idea because I think he will ask both of them. They'll both ask both the hard-pressing questions. It'll be a more kind of like it wasn't they're not biased in a sense. They criticize their own sides. They are very outspoken, you know, in there. So for me, I was like, yeah, get somebody like that. Forget these ABC, you know, and NBC and CBS and Fox moderators and who are basically their shows are based off their opinions. They talk about that yeah, these are their opinionated views on a lot of things. I don't want a moderator's opinions when it comes to a debate or when it comes to something like this. I want somebody who is not afraid to ask the hard questions on both sides. Now, I did appreciate some of the moderators tonight asking Walt some hard-hitting questions on immigration and things like that. He stumbled on his responses and certain things, but I need it on both sides. I think we need to get rid of these types of biased moderators for news networks that we know obviously lean one side or the other, and get somebody in there. Hell, I don't like her, to be honest, but even somebody like Megyn Kelly, who has separated herself right from you know, major news net. She has her own independent thing and podcast and everything now. And she gave Trump a hard time too back in the 2016 debates. She asked the hard-hitting questions. So even somebody like her, we need to get away from these networks and their anchors doing this, because it takes away from the. Now, the two, I think, did a good job of keeping focused, even though I agree with both of you that JD definitely was the one with more substance and had way better answers and stuff. But, you know, it was cordial. They both talked about, you know, how, and I did believe this on both sides. Like I said, I believe it was genuine. That moment when Tim Walz looked at JD and said, "I believe you want to solve this issue. I do, and I just think you're going about it the wrong way." And then JD said, "I believe you want to solve this issue, and I think you're going about it the wrong." That's what these debates used to be. You know, the fact is that yes, we have issues. We both want to solve them. We disagree on how we get there. And it was cordial. It was respectful. Yeah, babe, I know you've been trying to say something.
No, I've just been agreeing with you because you've been pretty spot on. Like, you know, like, but that's the thing though. Like, I don't think you can find that at this. Just how the politics work nowadays, and just how news stations and these companies like live off of politics. They
live off a headline or off.
They live off of headlines, and they live off of catering to a specific side. So there are certain news anchors and certain people out there that are very in the middle and are willing to have those types of conversations, and I think you should get those people, right? But how likely is that? Is
it's so weird. Yeah. Now get Theo Vaughn to do a debate. No, Rosales, what do you think? What do you think of all the moderators and all that type of stuff?
I think they were biased. I think they fact checked when they should.
They definitely fact checked.
They did not fact check. Grandpa Walt. They didn't fact check him at all.
That's true. They did not.
And when they asked him to rebuke stuff, all he said is, "That's not true." And then Trump this and Trump that and Trump this and Trump that. And a couple of times he didn't even answer the questions, and they finally had enough of it and finally circled back and told him, "You didn't really answer the question."
Well, Vance did that too a couple of times, where he kind of went off. They both kind of went off on tangents at certain.
They did more to put Vance on the spot to say, "Will you do this X if that?"
Right.
And those are targeted questions to make him say something that is a negative response. It would be like if I asked you, when did you stop beating on Bradley? Talking about spouse.
Hey, listen, that was after the first year of the relationship. Okay, we're 3 years in. It stopped.
You give to that question winds up being, like a hook, and then you're on for something, and those kind of questions are not fair. So they definitely were doing their best to do the dirty work that what are you saying? That's not true. Waltz was unable to answer to him. So
well, this has been also one of my biggest criticisms of the Democrats, both obviously Waltz tonight, Kamala and her debates, and over the course of this, is that, as I said tonight, there's a plan. And in certain conversations, in certain discussions, and certain, you can find it. They talk about it. You can go online. They have this big old presentation. It's a whole thing, and it's there. I wish they would read it and bring it into the conversation, because, like you said, he just goes, "Oh, I don't know," or that's not true. Okay, that's not true. Let me tell you why. Here are all the points of counterpoints of what you just said. Well, here's the plan that we have laid out. Blah 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 blah.
That means to me that they were not a part of creating the plan that's laid out for them. Now, I did go to her website, and her website is 75% AI. However,
was that the two paragraphs or the entirety of the website? And at the same time,
well, hang on a second. Hang on. Let me tell you, the policies, the PDF, I was going through that as well. That is not AI. Okay, so that was written by somebody. I don't think it was written by Kamala Harris or.
That's that's the PDF I'm talking.
Yes, that's the PDF. That's what you're talking right there. That is not AI. However, her standard website that everybody can go to if they don't go digging for the policy, they're going to be confronted with something that was done. Somebody paid to do that, obviously, and it's a website designer who put that together. And
look, I don't mind.
It happens. It happens.
I don't mind that because we went through the website on our last episode, and that's basically right. You get a lot of synopsis. Of certain plans and stuff, and then it goes, here's the PDF, here's the detailed stuff. What I wish they would do is put those points.
What you hear from them are just basically overviews of the policy without any meat or detail to it, because I'm pretty sure, just like the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, nobody who passed it ever read it. So I don't think she knows these policies. I think she was given the cliff notes of them, and so was Tim. And so he can tell you, that's not in there, but I can't tell you what's in it. I can't tell you what the policies are.
If I'm being honest, I think, and this is coming from a Democratic perspective, right, of kind of somebody who's been focused on, like, I think they're just the top Democrats who are, telling them, Kamala and Waltz and all these, what we need to focus on. I think they're wrong. Their whole thing is that we need to beat Trump. Mar has talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this, that, like, instead of focusing on the policies, which you should be countering and should be bringing up and should be, I think she knows them and stuff. I just think everybody, all the top Democrats around her are telling her just, focus on that joy, focus on that momentum, focus on all that, you're younger and you're from the middle class and you're this and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's going to run out. I've been saying that for a little bit. I don't think that's enough to take you to the election. People are going to start asking questions. They're going to start already. They're it's already happening. And at the same time, it sucks because now it took her forever to get policies even on her website. That was another huge complaint of mine. It was just give me money for a long time with absolutely no plan, no policies, which is unheard of for me, for a politician. That is just insanity. I've never. You don't even see that in primaries when these people aren't even close to the presidency. They still have sites with their plans and how
once
they're going to
they gave her the policy, she put it up. So,
well, yeah, I think she had to discuss and do all that and get to know how. But again, I think for the main part, they're just telling her focus on the joy and we have to win and it's not Trump. You're bet that. And again, I don't think that's going to last. That's not going to take you to the election. You have to.
I'm just glad to be done with Weekend at Bernie's at the White House.
Yeah, it's almost over.
True.
I didn't think he was going to last 4 years.
At the same time, Trump is also just getting, I feel, really manic these last couple weeks. His rhetoric has intensified. Everything, like, I feel like he is.
That'll happen when you get shot at.
I didn't see this. Well, but at the same time, like, it's also weird because it's not like he's bragging about it or talking about like that as much as I thought he would. Like it's very much
It's because
blown over, not just on the Democrat side, but on his side as well.
He's saying some things that real. I didn't mean to cut you off, Bradley. I just wanted to say he's saying some things that are really incendiary, like the only time he'll be a dictator is on day one,
right,
and stuff like that. These wordings of what he's saying.
You never have to vote again if you vote for me in this election. Right?
Yeah, things like that, and I'm not going to try to explain what he meant, because he should be able to explain himself. He should be able to talk and say what he means and means what he says. But on occasion, he does say these things that are hyperbolic, that will be cut out and used in incendiary fashions to
and the left does it too.
To be,
and the left does it too. And it's something that, for me, I'll be honest, tonight was a major refresher. I did not hear tonight one word of rhetoric from either side of it's over if Kamala wins, or it's over if Trump wins. It's the World War III. She's going to lead us into, or he's going to lead us. None of that was said tonight, and thank God, because that has got to stop on both sides.
It got kind of close when they were talking about Clinton and Facebook and Jan 6, but it got kind of close. I was like, okay, maybe this might go in a different direction now.
But even then, they held back, and they
kept it consistent, and they were respectful.
Now, they obviously disagree on that issue, but they kept it respectful.
And that's fine.
And yes.
But no,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a big reason that Trump isn't necessarily talking about how he got shot anymore is because if he was shot by a Democrat, he would have something to talk about. He'd have something to talk about. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, that person did do a lot of Democrat stuff before he joined the Republican
Party. But he wasn't like a you know what I mean.
That's like obviously he wasn't a Trump supporter and not really a full-on Republican, because he took shots at him.
Right.
If you count him as a solid Republican, then you will have to concede that there is a great portion of Republicans who really don't want Trump in the office.
Right.
Yeah. And, I don't think he.
And that's the thing too.
Either. I think that whatever that guy was, it doesn't matter. Like, he was fucking obviously not well.
He was a loon.
And that's the thing too. I've tried to stay away from that rhetoric as well.
Yeah.
I know there are extremist Democrats who, as soon as that happened, were going, "Oh, was he a Trump supporter? Was he a Biden supporter?" It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. He was crazy.
In my opinion. At that point, politics aside, whatever he was, that was wrong. It was disgusting. It was, a horrible act. And the fact that that's where extremists on both sides were. Again, I think tonight was so refreshing because that rhetoric was gone. It was respectful. This is reminiscent to fucking McCain and Obama era. They disagreed on a lot, but they wouldn't say, McCain called out a lady for saying, he's not this and that. And Obama, you continue to say he's a hero for our country, and we disagree on different policies and things like that. This is what I think debates should be. JD absolutely had, JD absolutely had a lot more substance tonight, but whilst at the same time, I just don't think he's the best debater. He obviously doesn't seem like a very confrontational person. He literally was like, when they were like, all right, your time's up. I'm sorry. He kind of even quivered up a little. He's obviously not the best in that space. And I think I can see that. I think that's fine. He wasn't, I don't think, somebody said in our chat, he was annihilating. I don't think he was annihilating. I think he stumbled. He wasn't the best, but he also had some very good responses. He was very respectful.
If the moderators were even, I think he would have shown off better.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point.
He was fighting three opponents.
If they asked him better questions,
they could have asked a lot better questions. They could have, talked more about the issues instead of bringing up the the talking point issues.
Well, and I like how both of them talked about, like, because they would moderators would bring that and they go like, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the actual thing. Both Vance and Waltz said, like, let's forget that, the crap, of what he said, she said, or all that. Let's focus on that. So respect to both of them. And that's why I think I said I'll be honest, I did not like Vance going into this, but I can honestly say tonight I feel a genuineness from both of them.
I think Vance is a better choice if there's a third gunman out there. That's what I think.
Hey, I think Vance would definitely would be a good shot too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like you said, I don't like him. I don't necessarily hate him. But at the same time, I appreciate what he presented tonight, and it showed me a different side. Which I hope that's consistent. Because I'm not just gonna say this one night, cures all of my thoughts of him. Like, oh, I'm, just gonna suck his dick now, But I need to see this consistency going forward, and maybe with this type of mindset that he has, if this is his consistent mindset and how he acts, going forward, maybe that's something that shows Trump how to act, because he clearly does not know how to act right now. He's fucking spewing nonsense, like pulling out straws to get voters. It's like ridiculously embarrassing right now. Right. Both sides are kind of like reaching at straws right now, with the fear mongering and the, but the whole thing about World War III, it's a bigger topic now than it ever was, because, World War III has always been a fear mongering tactic when it comes to elections.
I've been here. It's like I said, I've been hearing the World War III rhetoric since I was, ultra conservative, raised in that, like, Obama is the devil type person. I've been hearing that since I was a kid. I've learned, especially, and what I love about
when's the last time you heard 200 rockets into Israel?
Right, or even let's be honest, there very much is a faction of Christians that believe Trump is the Antichrist. I've been hearing this rhetoric for so many years, and that's why I talk a lot about on the show is this rhetoric. It's insane. We need to move past it. The world's not going to end either way. You may not like their policies. You may not like how they do things. They may not like all these other things, but it's not over. We continue. It's these extremist sides and these fear mongering and all these groups of people that work people up and get people into thinking, these extreme things as well, and that's just not the case. Because guess what? If a Democrat wins, a Republican's going to come in 4 years later and change the policies. And then another Democrat's going to come in and change those policies. And then a Republican's going to come in and change them. And it's just, that's how it's been for centuries. That is the beauty of America.
That's the thing I always try to get to, is that they are the two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
The Democrats and the Republicans, the establishment, that is, are basically the same cabal of people who are running the country. Because when a Democrat takes over, prices go higher. When a Republican takes over from that, taxes go higher. It's or housing prices collapse. And the whole bubbles burst, and the same rich people wind up making more and more money. Right. Off of the whole thing. And what Trump did was he came in as an outsider and he upset the apple cart, and John McCain proved it, that both sides really didn't want him there. A good third of the House Republicans decided not to run again, which gave away
John McCain proved that
the Senate.
I'm sorry, that they didn't want who there?
That they didn't want Trump there.
Yes.
They did not want him.
Yeah.
His attorney general at the time had told him that he needed to fire the head of the CIA or the FBI, and then turned around and tried to indict him for firing the person that he told him to fire. He had bad people that he was listening to simply because they wanted to undermine him. The whole PPT hoax, that whole thing was paid for by Hillary Clinton. And then they charged the Democratic National Committee for the work that they did on the dossier. So it was all planned ahead of time, and everybody was out to get him. He was
look,
basically alone.
I do think there were certain things, but at the same time, I don't think he was alone, because you look at a lot of these a lot of these Republicans now that have switched over and switched sides, right? For a lot of them, their breaking point were one of two things. One, it was at a certain point in office, there was a point where he wanted people to sign a loyalty thing to him, where their loyalty is to Trump, outside of and so certain people left out of that. And the other big thing was,
can you trust that actually happened?
I absolutely, I believe it based off of him and what he's shown, though. But that's
the
thing.
Not based off what they've told. Because you had people like Adam Schiff who kept saying over and over again in front of the reporters, "I have seen the evidence against Trump, and this indictment will go through, and he will be impeached, and he will be tossed out, and we're going to make it happen because I've seen it. The crimes happened. Everything is there." As soon as he gets in front of a sworn jury, or he gets in front of there and he has sworn testimony, his testimony was, I have seen no crimes happening. So Adam Schiff, sitting in the House, in the Senate, one of those guys.
Well,
so when
that's the thing, I'm not saying that's a crime.
He wanted us to kiss the ring. He wanted us to kiss the ring. He wanted us to be only to him. Those are stories of coming from people that are no longer that he no longer trusted and that wound up leaving him.
Here's my thing.
Again, it's a cabal of both Republicans and Democrats that are trying to undermine what he has done.
But at the same time, you had a lot of people who did read that and did have that, who were under the military that left. And the reason was because their job, their duty as the military is to be
generals
is to be nonpartisan. And so they were up until they were asked to bring, and that's the thing too. I'm not even going as far as to say that document.
To do what Trump says as president, when he was president, commander in chief, they were sworn to back his word. When he was threatening China and doing the tariff things, the leader of the military, our general, was going and talking to China and saying nothing's going to happen. We're not going to do that. We're not going to invade you. We're not going to draw our weapons on you. We're not going to do that. In the same sense,
obviously, it's a weird balance because again, we've learned that Trump's tactic is threat. I threaten you. I show a bigger flex, and that's going to work. So then you have other people having to go because you don't want to start World War III with China or some of these other countries going, we're not going to do that, obviously, but
he didn't.
That's the thing.
It's happening now, but he didn't do it.
I'm not saying it didn't work, right? I think that might be the balance that you need is the commander in chief going, we're going to do this, and then somebody going like, well, yeah, blah blah blah, or, unless you really push our limits here, that ain't going to happen. It's a balance because obviously we don't want to start those wars. These are people we trade with. These are things, right? And so
was encroaching on. I think he took Crimea in Obama's watch, and then he did some other stuff. And he's been moving his that little dial, and then he stopped for 4 years, and then started again, and went into what is that? What is that country? What's a country that's at war with Russia right now?
Ukraine?
Yes, Ukraine. So, there comes a time when the rhetoric is actually useful in keeping things at bay.
And that's what I'm saying. I think I'm not.
But you don't.
I think Trump. Trump
if you've got the
exaggerates
military and the politicians working behind you and telling other
countries. But that can
and
be a good
negotiating
thing
with them.
too. That can be a good thing too, because again, you need somebody like that's what I'm saying. That might be why it'd have worked.
You don't need a military that won't follow orders.
You can't have that rhetoric, and then have a military that is like right there about like we're ready. Like again, there needs to be that balance. I think it actually kind of worked that Trump was the I've got the pictures of your house. I'm gonna blow you up. All this type of stuff. And then we have our military commanders and generals and going, okay, yeah, he's saying this and stuff, but you really push our buttons and stuff. that might happen, and if we're given the order and all that. But more than likely, it's talk. This is talk from a businessman. You think he doesn't use the same rhetoric in a business when he's trying to buy it or do this? I'll buy you out. I'll just do this. I'll do that. I'm not saying it didn't work. I think it worked with the balance. And I think America needs a little bit more of that toughness of the commander-in-chief going like, I'm willing to fucking do it. Yeah, I'll blow you off the face of the earth or blah, blah, blah. And then that balance of our negotiators and our military and these, types of things, doing the real negotiations and those types. Like that's.
Let's be perfectly clear for 1 second, though. I just want to make sure that we're perfectly clear. I didn't want him elected the first time. I didn't want him to run the second time. Okay. Sure. I think both sides were forced to have the same opponents twice in a row, which to me tells me that they want this to happen the way that it's happening right now. Okay. A lot of things are moving forward, and a lot more stuff is going to happen before November shows up. So,
do you think we'll get a peace treaty in Israel before November to help the Democrats?
Oh no!
You don't think they're, because I've been predicting that they're holding out on that until right before November 1st to show that they made the peace treaty deal.
No, there were peace treaties before the last election. And Turkey signed the first peace treaty with.
Well, but I'm talking between Palestine and with their the ceasefire. I guess not the peace treaty. I guess the ceasefire.
No. There won't be a ceasefire because they just went. More of the Palestinians ran out into Israel and started shooting people up. When they saw that the rockets were coming down, they expected more damage to be happening. And they started a ground invasion into Israel and started shooting. Hey, I've never seen your face. Look at that. It's like a negative face butter knife behind you. That's awesome. And somebody else. Look at that. Oh, it's Halloween season. It's spooky season. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm coming downstairs because our AC went out and it's fucking hot.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
I gotta bring you over a fan. I'll make him over.
I have one, but it doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't do anything.
Awesome. I have a giant Take care of your guy. Take care of him.
But I do it. Look, because I've been. That was kind of my prediction. Is that all of these things always. I agree with you. Shit always happens before the election, right? To boost one side or the other. Blah blah blah. That was what I had been thinking. Is the Democrats are going to save that so that way they can tout that, we made the ceasefire before the election and, all this type of stuff. I could be wrong. Obviously, I know Netanyahu has met with Trump privately and I don't know what that was about or if that was even legal, but that happened. It's just so...
As long as they didn't talk politics.
They definitely talked politics.
Assumption on your part. They could have been trading recipes,
Hey, man, what's your recipe for falafel?
I wish I had one. I would email it to you.
Dude, that was when I went to Israel. I ate falafel for 6-7 days. I had at least one of the meals was falafel.
I can't imagine how good it was because
certain places were much worse than others. But you go into certain territories and they're like, or you go to.
It can't be anything like we got here in the States, though.
You gotta. Well, it's kind of weird. It is in the sense that just like the States have certain chains or things that are mimics or lesser knowns or the quick version, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing. You get the fast food version of the falafel compared to the sit down version.
Basically it's the same out there. Taco trucks are the best Mexican food you can get.
Essentially, in a way, yes.
It's besides just like a hush puppy. I don't get it. What are they doing wrong?
But yeah, I do expect some things to come up right before the election where whether it's the Democratic side or the Republican side, it's something big to kind of swing it in a way or that type of thing.
I expect at least one more shooter.
Oh my gosh, I know too. At this point,
I hope not, because if the third luck's a charm, But if Trump, I really do think if Trump dies, it's worse for everybody. I don't want him to die either. Like, I don't want anybody to die.
No.
Especially, a political assassination is the last thing this country fucking needs right now. And the 2 attempts were bad enough, so that's the last thing we need right now.
I think now you talk about the country ending, and something like that, or a civil war. That's where I'll tell you, I'll lean into that rhetoric. If Trump is assassinated or something something like that would definitely happen.
Oh, you better bet your ass. There's going to be a huge.
Because we can't forget, that look, 50, or at least a good half of Americans are for Trump, and a good half of Americans are for, they are with, the things that he says and stuff, and some of them more than others, but we have to respect that. We have to find a way to.
There are crazies on both sides.
Yes, absolutely. But we have to find a way to ignore the crazies for a second. And Obama made this great point at the DNC. And I've been touting it, and I wish Democrats would listen to him, but for some reason they don't. And that is, he said just what I said. Half of America is for Trump. We have to reach out and look at why. And then go, how do we do this in a way where you're getting, what you want, and we're getting some things. I know, Rosal, as you were saying in the chat and stuff, like about the border bill and that type of stuff. It may not be, the best thing, but it's probably one of the most bipartisan bills we have in years. Yeah, the Democrats are getting things that they want, but Republicans are also getting a lot of what they want. It's the first time where they kind of both went, all right, we're gonna compromise here and do this here, and and
did they pass that border bill? I think they did pass the border bill, didn't they?
They did not pass the border bill because of somebody.
They passed one bill.
I do believe that absolutely 100%. Trump saw that and was like, yeah, absolutely not. That can't pass before.
Yeah,
because
there's absolutely no way that anybody who's sitting in a chair right now, who's up for election again, is out there listening and doing what Trump says, especially when they spent half their time trying to.
I don't know. Look at all of the Congress people and senators that are for Trump and are diehard loyalists to this guy.
Those are the crazies that got voted in after he got out.
But now they've kind of taken a majority. They have
Laura Loomer types. I know she's not one of them. That's the only name.
Right, Marjorie Taylor, and the other one that was in the theater
Jewish
sucking somebody's dick.
Right,
yeah.
These people are just as nutty as AOC, and they're just as fanatical, and that's what you got to watch out for. Those people,
But that's my thing. It feels like those people are becoming more of a majority in that Republican side than they are on the other side. Whereas, like, you've got like, we've made fun of it for years. The squad, right? You've got AOC and that chick and like, I make fun of them. The squad, they're stupid. They say the most ridiculous. But, like, now with Republicans, you've got a large majority leaning very much towards the extremist points of view and the Trump's points of view and what he says is fact. And that's the other thing. He's almost become like a preacher, right? Whereas for a lot of Christians, what a preacher says is fact. They don't decide to really, like, dive deep into it or fact check it or research it or do that. They believe the words that are coming out of the preacher's mouth. And that's very much what Trump has become, I think, to a lot of Senate and Congress Republicans. He's the preacher, and what he says is whereas, Democrats still disagree on a lot of things. There's a lot of, you definitely have an extremist side, but you also still have a side that very much fights back against it and says we don't like that, and I'll be honest, it's definitely, like I said, AOC and the squad and the younger generation that are bringing in these very stupid ideas. But yeah, I just
AOC is being told what to say.
Oh, she's just insane. But I mean,
well, I want to say too that another thing that I was looking for tonight is JD Vance just going to be another mouthpiece, and he really wasn't. Like, I did not.
I give him.
So that was refreshing. I just want to.
I don't mean to cut you off, but that reminds me. Yes, and I wish Waltz would have done the same thing. Whereas JD Vance said, "This is a fault. The abortion thing is a fault on the Republican thing. We need to do better." At talking about why and all this.
Trump would have never taken that ownership.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Never.
And Waltz needs to do the same thing. Yes. Okay. If Waltz does not believe, right, that abortion law is supposed to be, or whatever, like Vance said, right, that after the baby's born, the doctor can deny care or blah blah blah. Okay. Well, if Waltz doesn't believe that, that would have been a good response. I don't believe that, and my party needs to do a better job of saying we don't believe in those extremists, and we don't believe in those extreme things. This is for a healthcare reason. This is for the medical reason, and this is for these other reasons. Like that, because that is on the party. And so like I do think that, yeah, I give Waltz a lot of credit for, or not Waltz, Vance a lot of credit for bringing that up.
Vance did say on a couple of occasions that yes, I did say that, and that was my opinion at the time. However, I was wrong. I think I heard him say that.
Well, and I'll be honest. Now, he did a better job of saying that than because look, I do believe Kamala has changed her mind after being presented with evidence. I think she's the type of person to, especially with younger people and all that, because she's very just that type of person, to get behind the idea and then get presented with evidence and go, maybe not. Obviously, fracking, gun control, all these different issues. I don't have an issue with politicians changing their mind. But the way JD Vance said it tonight, I think was perfect. He said, I changed my mind, but I need to be honest with the American. I've done interviews, I've done this, and I've said, I've shown, I was wrong here, and now, after seeing the presidency and how he did things, I liked how some of those things came through, and I can get behind that and all these things. The way he said it was far different than I've heard any politician say, how they've changed their mind on certain topics or things or that type of thing.
I think Waltz is a parrot, and that's a bad thing. I think if Trump got in office and something happened, he tripped down the flight of stairs of Air Force One, and there was a critical accident. I mean, not obviously they wouldn't wax that thing for him so that it would happen or anything like that. But I think that JD Vance would be willing to go ahead and say, okay, yeah, a lot of what he promised was very, very extreme. We're not going to go that way. We're going to do this instead. Just like a lot of the people he put in the Supreme Court weren't just rubber stamping everything he had going, and he's called them out for it. For saying, okay, I thought you were this, and then you're doing this.
But they rubber stamped the major. My thing is they rubber stamped the things that they probably were. You get this seat if you stamp this, type things.
It was and Roe v. Wade shouldn't have been law.
And look, but look, that's my thing is that let's be honest, Trump packed the Supreme Court. He did,
but that's what the president. Why are we giving?
Why are we giving? And I agree with that. So why are now Democrats? Because I'm seeing all this week, especially, or not Democrat, Republicans coming out and going Biden's going to pack the Supreme Court. He's going to do, or he's going to add on more Supreme Court members to balance it out.
Well,
Trump
because
did the same exact thing. No. But that's right. Trump did the same exact thing. There are 6 of the 8 of how many Supreme Court members are there?
There's a difference. They're not talking about what Trump did was well within the established criteria of the president of the United States, which is when there's an opening, you appoint somebody. Okay. What the Democrats are talking about is taking the Supreme Court and adding more seats thereby
yes,
giving them
to
the
give it.
opportunity. And
No,
what
no,
that
no.
no no
I
no no
think no,
that's
no, no. I
they
think a
can't
lot
do
of
that.
Republicans to
That's
give
not
the
the way
opportunity.
it goes.
But
They'd have to change the law in order to do
okay?
that.
But here's the question: where's the opportunity now? Because 6 of the Supreme Court justices are Republican, 3 are not out of the 9. So
Then
already you have a very large outweigh
the
of Republican to
they need to
Democrat.
stop
They're
retiring
talking
and
about
dying.
they're talking about now. That's one thing I do agree. Yeah, they need to stop. These guys shouldn't be in there until they die.
No,
They
you need
should
to have these. You need to have these contracts. Like, okay, you're
they
in
need
here
to
for
have
this long.
they need to have
You
terms.
can get this much done, this much passed, and by this amount of time.
Well, they need to have
out.
they
The
need to have
lifetime
terms.
appointment is meant to dissuade them from
Yes.
siding from one side or the other and feeling like they owe him. Okay. Nobody owed Trump anything. Once they got nominated and put on the seat, they didn't know him a damn
Kavanaugh,
thing.
he did
And
a
lot
lot
of them
for
proved it. Okay.
He did a lot for Kavanaugh.
Yeah, but Kavanaugh was being persecuted unjustly. None of that stuff that they brought up was true. He did not do any of those things to them
The
women,
only
and
thing I
all
would
of
say
them
about
wound up
Kavanaugh,
recanting what they said.
the only thing
I
I
mean,
would say about Kavanaugh is that he is definitely more Republican extremist.
he is
Yes,
more Republican, and the thing is that Trump was playing by the rules when he nominated him. Those rules were established, and every 4 years, the Democrats talk about packing the court. When they are in charge, they say it's not a good idea. And you can go back and listen to sound bites where they say it's a good idea, it's a bad idea. It's a
But
good
here's the
idea
thing.
to add more, it's a
They're
bad
not
idea.
talking about packing the court. They're talking about
They
adding
are.
up seats to balance the court. Because again,
No.
right now there's not a balance.
There's
This
not a
is
balance.
this is
Simply
not a
because
balanced
too many
system.
people retired on Trump's watch or died. And
But
that gave him the
Trump,
opportunity.
yes, but let's be honest. Right, like Trump very much went for the extremist
He was
point
supposed
for
to.
the extremist appointees.
He was supposed
than
to. And
force
you know
of,
what?
like, and so now we're kind of
if they died or retired on Joe Biden's watch, he would have done the exact same thing. And that's the point of it. Is that
I don't think so. I don't
that
think
is
so.
exactly the point of it. Yeah.
I do think we would have gotten at least some more balance, especially with Biden, because Biden doesn't agree with a lot of what the younger Gen Z stuff is and stuff. He still maintains a lot
this proves my point, though, is that because Joe Biden's been in office and the Democrats have been in control and they haven't done it. Okay. They keep talking about it, but they're in control right now. So they don't have to pack the courts like you're talking about. Okay. They will maybe start talking about it again if Trump happens to win. Okay, which he won't. All right, he's not going to win. No matter what happens, no matter how many people go out and vote, he's not going to win. Okay, it's just not going to happen.
You don't think he's going to
win? No,
you don't think he's going to win?
No, we're going to have the first Indian woman to be elected, the first African American president.
I'll be honest, I really don't know. I think it could go either way. I still am at that.
There's a big difference with Hillary.
That's interesting, though, that you think that it's definitely.
Well, I do think that she'll win, just because of that. You know,
I still think there's enough Trumpers out there to.
No, I think it'll be very close. If anything, regardless of how it goes, regardless if he wins or if she wins, it's going to be a very, very tight race, right? You're going to have a lot of. You're probably going to be in the same amount of eras of points. You know, they're probably going to be in that same area, 1 or 2 off.
So then, where do you think the Electoral College is going to go with Rosales?
I think Kamala's going to get it. Okay, I think what's going to happen
is Electoral College.
Yes.
Right now, Trump leads with the Electoral College, whereas Kamala leads with the general.
Yeah, but the general doesn't really matter.
It's true. I know it's weird. It doesn't really, but that's what I'm saying. Though, in the end, right now, Trump is still leading with the electoral.
Yeah, but that's going to change. I mean, they have to say that in order to seem unbiased. Okay, they will not vote for Trump to be in office. It's not going to happen.
I really don't know.
What do you think?
And I'm the one on the other side of the fence from you guys, you know.
Right.
I'm not rooting for him.
I do.
I do. Now, obviously you don't have to share stuff, but we like to talk about it. Are you voting in this election? And are you do you have somebody that you're voting for?
I am going to vote in this election, and I'm going to vote early.
Yeah.
And You know, I'm going to be.
I'll be voting on
not
November
vote
4th
often.
on no sleep, so that will be interesting.
Yeah,
vote often. That's the Democratic way.
And make sure you put it in an actual box and never hand it to anybody or let anybody fucking touch it. Because that's a lot of people. A lot of people are getting taken advantage of nowadays. I'm seeing
all of the ballots I turn in will be handed straight into the box.
Yeah, I just I'm like people don't understand like how important it is. Like
I'm classic. Can I be honest? I actually like going and getting in line and doing the whole thing.
That's fine too.
And all that. Yeah, I'm glad I go on voting day on November 4th and
no. See, there's a lot of people already talking about how they're still getting the voter registration applications in the state where they no longer live. And there's a lot of, I think it was like 9,000 recently in one state got eliminated because they were duplicates. You know, and this is ignoring all of the crazy videos you're seeing out there about people interviewing Mexicans or Guatemalans who say they're registered to vote. Let's ignoring all that. Okay, there are still plenty of dead people on the voter registrations, and there's still people that are. There are still felons out there, and one of them. Years ago.
I have looked into this whole immigrant thing. I don't think those votes are being as, I think that's being a little bit exaggerated by the Republican side as far as like all the immigrants are coming to vote and all that stuff and outweighing all that. Now look, I do think there's a problem with immigration that needs to be handled. I'll be honest. Tonight was the first night that I heard an immigration plan from the Trump side that sounded legit. The way that JD Vance presented it and said, let's start with the million, right, that have committed a crime outside of being here illegally. Let's start there. Perfect. Okay, you're telling me something that I agree 100%. Those guys, they got to go.
8 guys in Tennessee were caught looting houses, and it turns out that they were on the got away list.
But the fact is that this is my thing. It took until now to hear this, whereas Trump had just begun. It's going to be the biggest deportation you've ever seen. All right, mass deportation. They're all going to go. We're going to use them. Okay, great. But what are the details? And tonight was the first night that I heard the details of that.
That's because you're listening to the same information is within both of their reach. It's just one has the ability to actually
say it,
be eloquent with, and say it. The other one is prone to hyperbole, and so that's what you're going to get is the hyperbole. They're all going, every one of them. They're all going. We're taking them out. We're going to fly them in the jets that
was my thing. Is the way he was saying it. The way he was saying it, even though I didn't think this was going to happen, the way he was saying it, when you say it like that. It's very easy to go, well, what does that look like? Are we putting people in camps like we did in 1940s with the Chinese? Are we doing that? Like, what does that look like when you say a mass deportation like this? And so that was my biggest thing. Like, again, I don't believe he's going to do that. But when you say it like that, it's easy. It's easy to go like, well, again, what does that look like? What does that mean? So good job on Vance for saying that this is what it looks like, and I think that was well put.
One problem.
Go ahead.
Or go ahead, Rosales.
No, I was just going to say that JD Vance has shown that he can take what somebody else has put out there and explain it in a much better way. And Waltz has come out and shown that he's a parrot.
Yeah, he's Kamala Copy. Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
And if you were to choose between one or the other, if for any reason they were the actual candidate was to not be able to complete their service, the one I think would probably be better suited would be JD Vance. I'm going to turn this off so I look less green. Watch colors coming back.
I'm feeling some Green Lantern fans. Were you in talks for Green Lantern?
You know what? I missed the last follow-up auditions. What it was, I had to call back. missed my flight, so
I couldn't make the kids. The kids
Couldn't
needed me.
couldn't make it. Couldn't make
Neither
it.
could Josh
and,
Brolin.
throw it out, so. But yeah, JD Vance, on the other hand, will continue to be manipulated in the same way that Joe Biden has been manipulated, and the way that Kamala Harris will be manipulated once she gets into office. Nothing is going to change as far as the policies are concerned. Everything that she said to get to the middle, talking about the border and everything else, is going to fall by the wayside, and we will have business as usual as it is right now for another 4 years. And I think that's a lot better than if Trump got into office and riots broke out everywhere and things started happening like it did the first time he got into office. There was a lot of civil disobedience, a lot of civil unrest, a lot of the FBI going out and cosplaying as Republicans, trying to get people to string up. And that would be far worse this time around than it was in 2016. And the country can't stand that.
Well, I do think, and look, and the rhetoric has always been there. Like I've said, I've heard it since I was a kid, especially from different divisions and factions of each.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't deny and say that, look, I think Trump brought it into the spotlight, and then Democrats adapted it. They went right for it, and they said, okay, we'll play the same game. And now it's exploded. And it's this whole thing where that last debate, if she wins the election, it's World War III. If he wins the election, democracy is gone. Like, guys, that's not what this, stop taking it to this extreme and get back to honestly what we had tonight, where they said we're gonna ignore that stupid rhetoric and we're gonna focus on the policies.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful things were said where JD acknowledged and told Tim, man, I'm sorry that your son had to see a school shooting. That's horrible. And I felt that was genuine from him. And when Waltz, said things to Vance, I felt it was genuine. There was, again, it brought back to, we want the same thing. We want the immigration change. We want all these types of things changed and freedoms and blah, blah, blah. We disagree on the policies and how we get there. But we're good people and we're genuine and we care. I believe that both J.D. Vance and Tim Waltz care about the American people. And I believe that both from their backgrounds and from what they said tonight.
My son is, my oldest son is doing homeschooling for high school now. And that started this year. He started off the year going to high school. And the day we pulled him out was the day that somebody got caught in school with a gun.
Ooh, may I ask what grade?
Yeah, he's a sophomore.
Okay.
So, and that was our choice. He didn't know about it, but we got the email. Okay.
Yeah.
And school and our other son's school are really big on having resource officers and armed guards there at the school. And we're able to take care of that situation without anything happening. Had they not been there, something would have happened. So I am a great proponent in protecting the children. Okay. So I don't want to arm the teachers. I don't think should carry guns to school to fight back. I think trained.
I do think like security officers and like licensed, or like even in some states they've enlisted actual police officers, like actual metro.
Well, my high school, I only went 1 year in public high school and left. But the year I was there, cops would regularly come by on a daily basis, like around like lunchtime or so. They would come around and just
walk by,
roll campus. They would come on campus, talk to the vice principal. They would regularly come in and do that. And that's something that needs to happen too. And listen, I don't give a fuck if your white privilege is all like, ashamed of having some metal detectors at your kid's school. I mean, if that makes your kids safer, I don't give a fuck. I have multiple siblings that are in school. One of them's in kindergarten, one of them's in, a freshman, one of them just graduated. Safety at their school was pretty good, for where they lived. but that's not everywhere. And there needs to be, something systemized with these schools, like some safety protocols, and like I said, spruce it up with metal detectors. Check those kids' bags every day if you have to. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't care how grueling or how embarrassing it makes them feel. It's, and granted, that's a lot of money to implement all that security at every single school in America. So that's going to take a long time.
And the thing is that not every school. We have multiple school districts in our area of the state. Okay, so there's at least 4 or 5 school districts in North Texas, and that happened at our school. And we took him out and decided, we're just going to homeschool him. We started him off that way. We're going to finish him off that way, and that's going to be fine. And just a few weeks later, there actually was a shooting at one of the other school districts where they it's a gun-free zone. It's that's where they go to shoot. There was a mall shooting in town where it was a gun-free zone, and it happened right in front of a cop. And then there was that school shooting in El Paso, Texas, where the guy got inside the school because they left the door open.
Yes.
And their security was unarmed. And then the police failed to go in. They held back and waited.
It took so long. Yeah. I mean, even it's getting so wild now. And that's my thing where is like, look, I'm all for guns. I'm all for people being armed and stuff. But
the thing that guy was not even in school anymore. He went to the elementary school, and they said that he went to other schools first, but they had resource officers there. So he went to the place where there was nobody there to protect the children, and he knew it. And that's the thing.
That's also the thing too for me is it's so weird that we even have to have that. I mean, the fact is that we're one of the only countries in the world that has to have that type of protection for kids at our schools and stuff is, and look, I think, I don't think it's all the gun, but I do think it's a mixture. Absolutely. I think a crazy person with access to a automatic rifle or with the ability to make that rifle automatic in any type of way or make it a more dangerous gun than it is a very, it's a very dangerous thing. I don't think we need to have access to that, or if we do, we need to have far better checks and balances as to who are getting this. I mean, the fact is, the last school shooter, the last one, was a kid who had been gifted the gun by his father. His father entrusted him with this type of massive weaponry. And the kid went to school and shot it up. So it's not. You're right. It's not always the guns, but it's a balance of it's the guns and then somebody like that enabling their child.
And I think that's probably why they got arrested, was because you have a mentally unstable child who was already talked to by the police a year ago about going in and making school shooter comments, and then you turn around and think, oh, well, I think he's well enough. He can.
Hey, it's Christmas time. Merry Christmas, buddy.
And the thing about it is that the guns, there are no guns that are specifically made for school shootings, just like there are no cars meant for vehicular manslaughter, but it happens. Okay. You're not going to outlaw cars because 50,000 people a year die in automobile accidents. Okay. You're not going to outlaw airplanes because, 5,000 people a year die in airplane crashes.
But it's the fact that these mentally unstable people got access to these guns.
They have, alcoholics have access to cars.
True.
It's not
very
about,
true. Very true. Very true. Great point. That's a great point.
At the end of the day, I don't think because that's been the talking point since Columbine, is like resources and what you just mentioned there is like, I don't think it's about resources and about, whether they were gifted it or whether they found it. It's not about that. Like there's the resources out there. It's about protecting the schools too. Like, there's no fucking way you can like possibly test every single person and, grant whether they can have a gun or not at whatever age they are, right? Like there is, if you're an adult, but when you're these kids who have these access to guns, they don't obviously need that. They're getting these guns from their parents. They're getting these guns from their friends, whatever. They're just getting these guns regardless, which that is the problem. There needs to be some, the black market isn't talked about enough. Like how easy it is to go and get a gun without a license.
I'll be honest, it's not even the black market anymore. I talk about all the time. Here in Nevada, I live in Las Vegas. It is so easy to get a gun here without a license we still have the gun show here. And
but you know what? That's illegal. That is illegal.
It's illegal federally or what?
It's illegal to get the guns. If you are not allowed legally to get a gun and you get a gun, you've broken the law. Okay.
Well, here you can get very easy, like I said, like at the gun show, you can get very easy access. They're not doing background checks. They're not doing all these things. You're getting a gun. No licenses are involved.
Yeah.
None of these types of things.
Bradley's talking about black market stuff. That's also super easy. Okay. Yeah. But that's breaking the law in order to get something that you're eventually going to use to break the law. Okay. So the thing about laws is laws are not preventative. Okay. No. They do not work to prevent. They only work to punish those who infringe on the rights of others. Okay. So the police, unless they are stationed as guards at schools, cannot protect and serve. They can only come after something has happened. Okay. Right. So, if you've got somebody who's going to do something and they advertise it, they call it, they say it, they put it on Facebook, you've got a small window of opportunity to have somebody intercede and take action. Otherwise, the police are going to respond to what's happening as opposed to preventing it from happening.
Right.
And when you get to the point where you are restricting people's freedoms in order to protect them from the minuscule amount of people, it becomes like outlawing cars because of drunk drivers, because a drunk driver will get behind the wheel whether he's legal to do it or not.
Well, like I said, I think it just means, for me, it just means more checks and balances, more whatever the background checks thing, all that type of stuff. You bring up, the cops thing. I know this was a big issue, especially back like during COVID and right before, where this issue of cops are obviously not trained in like mental health matters or civil matters and stuff. And you had a couple of kids that were having mental outbreaks, and they were shot and killed. And it was because of a call made by like the mother or somebody saying, my child's having an outbreak. They have these issues. And
what were they doing during the mental outbreak, though? They were wielding weapons?
Not always. No, these were some situations that were not, where there were no weapons involved. But that's the thing. It became a matter of, okay, do we need to have cops trained in this matter? To deal with these types of things where, these again were situations where kids weren't have weapons, they didn't have knives, they didn't have anything like that. They were manic, they were screaming, and they were maybe turning table or doing all these types of things. But cops came in gun ho.
You're going to have to pull those out specifically, because you're speaking generally about an issue that probably happened in one or two cases where others, there was something involved, like somebody having a manic attack and then he's swinging around a machete. There was a guy who was hacking, had one of these type of manic attacks where he wasn't all right in the head. He was using a machete to hit the fence at a police station. Okay. And he got gunned down. Okay. Now he was not in his right mind. And there was he an adult?
Was he an adult?
He was an adult.
So when I'm talking about kids, because there were a couple issues with.
Well, that's why I'm saying you got to be specific and bring up a case like this is Johnny Ferguson here.
Okay, these were kids. These were kids where it was the parents calling saying my kid's having a mental breakdown. They have these issues, blah blah blah, and the cops came in gun ho.
But they can't all be. They're not all George Floyd. Okay.
No. And I'm not saying they are. Yeah. No.
And George Floyd was.
But there were some. But there were some massive issues. Look, even with Floyd. I don't agree that like he's a martyr or that he was completely innocent and stuff, But absolutely, there was an overuse of power there, and an overuse of, like, he was unarmed, all these different things, saying I can't breathe, all these
He
types of
couldn't
things.
breathe before they put their knees on his neck. He was saying I can't breathe before they put him in the car. I saw the whole video.
Well, then even then, that doesn't mean you go put your
no, but he was resisting and he wasn't stopping, and he was completely whacked out of his head because he was on drugs.
But he
swallowed
wasn't
drugs before they got there.
Once they had him on the ground and in cuffs, he was on the ground and in cuffs. He was. They didn't need to have all the other stuff and all 6 police officers, all this. Like, he was
They
on.
weren't
Once
all
he
on
was.
him. There
Once
was
he was
only
on
one
the,
officer on him, and
right,
he had
and
his
well,
knee
and especially after
his
saying
neck.
he can't breathe and stuff. Like I said, once he was on the ground and in cuffs with
He
6
couldn't- he
people
couldn't
surrounding
breathe.
him.
They got him on the floor.
But
what
that's
he
the
was
thing.
saying.
So then you get the medical attention. You don't put him down with 6
They hadn't
officers.
arrived yet. They
They
hadn't
had-
arrived yet.
Well,
The
yeah, you
medical
get the.
attention had not arrived yet.
You call for the attention. You don't put him on the ground with 6 officers already handcuffed. He's not armed. He ain't gonna do anything. He's on the ground in handcuffs with 6 other officers surrounding you.
He's not doing anything because he was already dying, is my point. Okay. He did not die because there was a knee on the back of the neck.
It didn't help.
He was, a knee on the back of the neck never helps. But
Right.
you know what doesn't help? Trying to pass off a 20, a counterfeit 20. That doesn't help. That
But
gets
that's the
top
thing.
called
Yeah,
because, okay?
he's not a martyr. He's not innocent or anything.
Without-
But there was
Without
absolutely
that
an abuse
happening,
of
he
power.
dies in an alley with nobody knowing about who he was. Okay. He was on his way to die anyway because he was already on those drugs. So
we don't necessarily know that this was a guy that had been doing these drugs. He could have been saying anything could have happened. Like, we can't
I
say
could be
that,
wrong
like,
about Kamala winning, but I'm
He
pretty
was-
sure it's going to happen. You
I
know?
mean, all right, now see, now that I'm still, and this is as somebody that's for all that. Like, I don't know. I still think Trump could come out of it and still make it. I don't know, especially with the Electoral College stuff. But yeah, with
it didn't work for him last time.
yeah, right.
Call
They wanna-
everybody you can. See if we can find the votes. We can do it.
Pick 'em
We
up.
can do it.
I need 15 things.
We need 11,000. All right, 11,000
15K.
votes. You can
They're
find us.
somewhere out there. I know they are. But no,
His vice
just
president
know
was
that.
like, "Knock it off. We're not even going to say it. No, just stop it."
No,
Okay.
that's something. That's something I'm looking forward to this election. Like, regardless of who wins, if I hear 1 ounce of election fraud, no, it's gonna happen.
Well, look, I agree with Waltz. Whoever wins and stuff, they need to, and he's the one that said it. So, whoever wins, shake hands, move on. You won. Congratulations. Let's
Adios. And,
Yeah,
and guess
exactly.
what? And guess
start the
what? People on-
transition.
And guess what? People on Twitter don't realize this, but guess what? Just because they're not president or vice president, if they don't get voted in, doesn't mean they won't be working together in the White House after that.
Sure.
2016 changed everything about the election. We used to know every 4 years, we would know by 9 o'clock who was going to be the president. Okay. 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. So it could have been later for you, maybe 11, maybe even earlier if you were in the West Coast.
Well,
It could have been
actually,
about
I would
8
say
o'clock,
it
9
wasn't
o'clock.
2016. It was 2020, and I would say that was because of.
That's when it
2016,
changed.
I would say that was
2016
because
is
of
why it
COVID.
changed. Okay. 2016 is why it changed because they decided, and they were telling you this weeks before. Well, because of all of this is what's going on, and we've got the COVID, we may not know for a few days who's going to really
2020,
be the
2020.
president. Yes, in
Right,
2020. Yeah, because we're going to keep counting until we
Right.
get our way.
Right.
That
That
was
changed.
weird,
Yes. Yes, I agree. That did change things, and obviously
Oh.
you had a lot of the mail-in votes and all these different things. People who had
Ballots.
died from COVID were voting, and all these. Yes, there were.
If Kamala gets the popular vote, they're gonna say she's president by 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. If Trump gets the popular vote, they won't say Kamala won until Friday. Okay, because that's what happened with Joe Biden.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be now. Yeah, I would hate to see that again. I will say, like, right now that was a special time with COVID and all. So we'll see.
All
where,
those rules are in place for mail-in ballots, by the way. None
They
of
are,
them have been
yes.
repealed. So whatever shenanigans were going on,
but also those
independently
rules
of each other.
those rules were put in place by Trump too. I think that's a funny thing that people forget is that, like, he was the one first advocating for early mail-in and doing all this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden, once he started losing, he goes, like, "Never mind, it's fraud."
Again.
You know, like,
his inner circle is whispering, we should do the voting, the mail-in ballots. That's what we should do. Sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. He fell for it. He had people. There were people inside of him. There was massive skullduggery going on around him. Again, you add the skullduggery of the people who want things the way they were, whereas everybody's getting paid really, really well by being a politician. You can go into Congress poor, making less than $4,000 a year, and then by the time you're done, you've made $60 million. That's not right. That shouldn't be happening. That means people are paying for the influences, and you're the one doing the influencing because you've been paid. This is a corrupt system. And then Trump came in here and said, "I'm so rich, I can't be bribed." And also, I'm an asshole. And I don't know much about politics. So all of that going on, okay, plus you have all of these people. It's amazing that there's anything for him to actually brag about, because he was fighting such an uphill battle. Now, had everybody done what Waltz is saying, and we said, all right, good job. He won, so let's just get back to business. And we all campaigned on repealing Obamacare, so let's get it done. And then they do it. But that didn't happen. People started retiring. People gave up. He had the House and the Senate and the White House. And before that's when they could have done it. And you got that number right there, because they were not fully behind him. He was going to upset the apple cart, and everybody's who was being paid to influence was not going to get influence anymore, because there was somebody there who wasn't willing to play ball. And that's the thing that Trump brought in. No, he was not the best person to be in the office. No, but he shined a light. He turned on the light in the bad neighborhood kitchen, and the roaches were just everywhere scrambling. Okay, that's what he revealed about the House and the Senate and Congress and all these other politicians and the lobbyists and everything else, is that he showed how everything is being basically controlled by some powerful people, who aren't necessarily elected anymore. There's a lot of regulations that happen and things like that they say, okay, we're here with the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and we've decided that this species has a right to survive, and so now it's against the law for you to water your crops, and so we're going to divert this river and sustain this marshland. And then people are like, no, you can't do that. We're going to take our water back. And then they get arrested over a law, which is not really a law, it's a regulation. You had people in bureaucratic levels underneath the politicians basically rewriting laws and treating everybody as such. And there's no laws there. It's just regulations.
Oh, I saw a video the other day of some ATF agents approaching a guy, and they said that they had a list of people who bought like certain extensions for an AR-15 or something, and that they were illegal when they aren't illegal. The bill hasn't been passed yet. It's just the politicians and the higher ups trying to enforce it, even though it's not even fucking legal.
Well, it was a regulation that they passed. The regulation says you can't have that, and there's no law saying you can't, but the regulation on their books, and it has nothing to do with people, and they're trying to enforce these regulations as if they are laws, and that is a dangerous precedent to set, because bureaucrats write the regulations. It's not the system of checks and balances that goes through the House and the Senate, and proposing bills and then debating the bills and then going to the president to get vetoed and sent back to the House and the Senate to be reworked so that the president will sign it. And then somebody challenges that bill, that law, once it comes into action. And so it goes to the Supreme Court, so the court can judge on whether or not that law is a just law or not. I mean, that's the whole point of that. And again, going back to expanding the seats. That is changing the rules so that you get your way, as opposed to playing by the rules and waiting your turn for somebody to die or retire, which is how it's been since they put them in place. It's meant to protect ourselves from acting harsh and rash and out of spite, because a lot of stuff was done out of spite in order to get Trump out of the office. And the one thing that he brought to Washington, which is really, really weird, is that there's no more embarrassment for scandal. Okay. There was a guy who ran for president, and then somebody said, "Look, here's a picture of him with his secretary, and she's on his lap on his boat, and it looks very, very scandalous. Is there something going on here we should know about?" I have to bow out of the race now because I was embarrassed in public, so I'm no longer running for president. Bye.
Yeah, that happened with Hart. What was his name?
Hart? Yeah. Gary Hart.
Gary Hart.
And they're like, "Oh, look, Trump said you can grab him by the hoo-ha," and he said, "Nobody's supposed to hear that."
Right.
And it's like, no, you're supposed to drop out. We embarrassed you in front of everybody. You said something completely horrid and horrible. You gotta drop out. Why?
Yeah, no, I think we're past all that type of stuff. The more but now it's just the way of thinking, the morality of it, and all those types of things. Where, again, like you said, when you're a celebrity, I just want to grab it. I do just grab them. I just kiss them. I just let they just so I agree. Like, it's not that big of a deal that people like to make it out of, or some scandalous things, like people do things and all that type of stuff. But I think when it comes to the level of that and that type of mindset as well, that's not necessarily what.
That's also the birth of the hyperbole that you see nowadays. Okay, drawing inferences from one thing to another. He said he was grabbing them by the hoo-ha. I got kids around me. He was grabbing them by the hoo-ha, and he was running that teenage beauty contest, and he was walking backstage with them. Was he doing that then? Let's let our imaginations run wild and make all of these accusations and say this is what he was doing. This is what kind of guy he is. And then somebody comes out of a drugstore and says, "Trump raped me in a broom closet."
Right. Yeah, and that was especially a big thing with everybody coming out and accusers. It's. I mean, for me, I don't think he should be in jail or anything like that. Like, I do think, certain things where he shouldn't have the privilege to run again, maybe for some of the things that he did with January 6th and those types of things.
He didn't do anything in January 6th. That was the FBI and the CIA.
Well, that is a topic for another stream, because that's a stream in itself.
They won't.
As long as he has 4 years left, he can run.
They won't tell us how many people who worked for the FBI or were FBI assets were on the ground at January 6th.
Was what's his face with the horns guy? Was he an FBI asset?
They weren't. They're not saying. They've been in front of Congress multiple times, and they say we won't have that information until at least February.
Yeah, and it's like we'll have all the information from JFK every year, and we never get it.
Yeah. So, the thing is like there were assets on the ground from the FBI. Okay?
I'm sure there were. When days before Trump was going, let's all meet here. It's going to be wild. It's going to be this and that. Like, absolutely, FBI is going like, oh.
They were not there to make arrests.
What type of people are coming to this? No, but you have to investigate. No. You have to wonder. Like, you have to it's.
They were inciting the mob. They were the ones who incited the mob. They were the ones who got people started. They were the ones who called for people to storm the Capitol and cause such a ruckus. Okay?
I don't think so. There were people there on their own. I mean, look, I'll be honest.
They were behind,
You know who did a great job of showing that was the Borat sequel.
Whitmer
Borat sequel. When they went to those rallies and you see them getting on, these guys are patriotic and ready to go on their own. They are just
that's a documentary.
Right.
It's a comedy movie, man. And it's definitely selective editing on that part. But the Whitmer, the Jennifer Whitmer case, where there was a plot to kidnap her, the mayor of Wisconsin or whatever it was. Okay, there was a group that was arrested for a plot to kidnap the governor. Okay, and there was a big stink about it because they were all Republicans, is what they said. You know, they were all these MAGA extremists, is what they called them. And it turns out that there were far more FBI agents than there were people in that plot. And it was the FBI agents who incited them to come up with the plan, who drove them to the meetings, who told them where to buy the weapons, who encouraged them to do that. In some cases, they loaned them the money to do it. And it stinks to high heaven of setting somebody up so that you can arrest them. And if they did it once, they've done it before, and they would do it again. And I think that's what happened on January 6th. You see that one guy yelling, "We need to storm the Capitol," and everybody around him yelling, "Narc, narc, narc."
That can be an issue with the tactic as well, because, like, let's be honest, they do the same tactic with child predators too, right? They act as a kid and get them to think that they're meeting a kid and do all these types of things, and then they do a mass drug or a mass
random
sex
strangers
arrest
don't
and all
even
these
do that
kids.
now.
Well, yes, but they also do that, within the law.
Yeah,
too,
but they buy them the condoms and send them the money to cross country.
So it's a way of the tactic too. Of course, you're going to go in there and like
that's enabling it. It is against the law for them to enable a crime to happen.
And that's basically what they're doing. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. It's an issue with the tactic, because that same tactic, that is used to enable those people to try. It's the same tactic and used to get
plot to kidnap Jennifer Whitmer. They didn't stumble upon that plot. They created the plot. Okay, they were not trying to catch people who were trying to engage in a felony. They created a felony for these people to be arrested doing, and then enticed them to do the crime.
But those people still could have said no, and still could have that's the thing. It still ends up on the just like the same tactic with the catching a pedophile predator. They can still say no. I'm not going to talk to you.
No, it's not the same, because the catch a predator people would have been doing that anyway. Okay, they were out there fishing. Okay, is what they were doing, and they were, if they weren't there trolling in the first place, they wouldn't have gotten caught and put in that situation. Okay, these people, the FBI went out and started this group and hatched the plan themselves, and then funded the plan, and then trained them. They trained them. They warned people that they had these military tactics involved because they trained them in the military tactics themselves.
Right.
So it's like what we do in other third world countries to take people down. Okay. Sure. When the CIA goes down to South America and they start training the rebels down there and giving them weapons and things like that, and then we say, well, you know what? Technically, we're not actually involved in anything what's going on. However, if somebody needs our assistance, we're going to help. That's the kind of thing that they did, except they were doing a criminal activity themselves, which is why most of those guys got off. Okay. Because the lawyers, some of them, took plea deals real early on. But the rest of them, they were like, no, we're not even going to charge you guys with anything, because what they did was so wrong. It's incredible. And so what you've got now, though, is in January 6th is a successful version of the same thing. And you've got people that are still rotting in prison who have not even gone to trial yet. They haven't even been charged. And they're sitting in isolation like if they were terrorists. And all they did was they followed the crowd, which they shouldn't have done. But the ones who did incite and start that were members of the government. the same members of the government who turned down the offer that Trump had offered them a day ago or 2 days earlier for the National Guard to be out there. Okay. So Nancy Pelosi even admitted that she turned down the offer of that. These were plans in place so that when he had his rally, they would take the group of people down there. They would incite them into going into the Capitol. And that's what they did. And the police on the inside opened the doors for them and walked them through. You could see videos of that. They're walking them through the Capitol.
You know, but no, I think it might have been them too, but it was also the people who came out after Trump. I forget their names. There's like 2 or 3 guys who came out right after Trump, and they are the ones who really got people going. Like all the rhetoric and all the extremist points that you were hearing at the time.
Sure,
they were out there. And I don't think it was an FBI agent who made a fake noose with a body on it screaming "Hang Pence." Like, I don't think that was necessary. And granted, I don't think Trump or the FBI or anybody needed to do much at all to get these people riled up. I think the anger was there.
Oh, absolutely not. No, after 4 years of riots in the streets over nothing really, and neighborhoods being destroyed by fires and whatnot. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there were pallets that were laid out in the places for the riots. There was a place in Dallas that was going to have a riot, and there were these pallets of bricks, and people were passing out frozen water bottles and things like that. So all of that stuff was organized it was organized chaos is what it was. So It's a strategy that had worked before. What I'm saying is that Trump was not responsible for what happened to it more than the FBI was.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. They both just gave them like Joker said, just give them a little push.
Yeah. You know, and they shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have gone into the Capitol. That was the wrong thing to do. They shouldn't have broke the windows. They shouldn't have vandalized anything. That was the wrong thing to do. I condemn anybody who took any kind of action against the Capitol. Okay, the whatever it's called. It shouldn't have been done. You shouldn't have gone in there. You shouldn't have broke the law. You shouldn't have resisted or anything else like that. But the truth of the matter is, there were no police officers killed that day.
Yeah.
There was a lady who was shot. Oh yeah, she was shot through the neck.
That lady, I mean, she kind of was asking for it. Like she
shouldn't have been hammering at the window. She shouldn't have tried to climb through the window. She shouldn't have been in there in the first place. You know, it's like I would tell my sister, that's a bad neighborhood. Don't go in there. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying it's your fault if somebody assaults you. I'm just saying don't be in the wrong place where it can happen. Okay. Right. So none of them people should have gone in there. That was a terrible thing for them to do. It was not worse than 9/11. It was not the Civil War. It was none of that. And that was a ridiculous stance for anybody to take and say that they were traumatized by that. Only senators who weren't in on it should have been traumatized by that.
Or the people that were in the congressional hearing at the time being rushed. Like you can see like a video cam CCTV of all the members of Congress like rushing out of the
assembly. They were assembled there to ratify the election, certify the votes, and everybody wants to say that they wanted to go in there and stop that from happening so that it wouldn't happen, and that's just stupid. That's not that was not an insurrection. Okay, that was a riot straight up. It was bad thing to do, but it was not insurrection.
I think it was more like I don't think it was a full-on insurrection for sure, because if it was, there would be much bigger repercussions at this point. But I do think it was more of like a scare, and me and Austin and Bob have talked about this. Like it was definitely a scare tactic. Like definitely like, hey, this is what we can do if we don't like what you do, and what we will do if you don't pick the decision that we want. I think it was more of like a statement more than it was like an actual,
I will agree that some people would do that, and I believe that most of the people who walked in there, that did the bad things like breaking things and being disruptive. That's true for them. there was a lot of people who were just sightseeing, walked through there, took pictures, and then left. They're still in jail, but they were just excited to be a part of something, while others were being instigators. And I think a good portion of them, not, I won't say all of them, Austin, but some of them were instigators that were planted there to do that. And this was so that they could use it as a way of demonizing Trump.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the rowdy class. You're going to have those kids who are kind of innocent and just there, and you're going to have the other group of kids that are like causing chaos and egging the teacher and shit. Same.
Yeah, you remember in school that the kids that got caught, for the most part, it wasn't their idea to begin with. The guy who got away with it and didn't get busted with them, he was the a-hole behind the whole thing. The teacher knew it. There was no proof of it, but he knew it, and he was like, "You one day you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
I'll take these guys to the office, but I know it was you who was behind it, Austin." I don't know what it was like in high school, but yeah. I am not a fan of the government, so
That's why I remain a true independent, and I will not act like these California independents who are definitely Democratic. They're just afraid to say it.
I can be wrong, and I'm glad when I'm wrong because I spout so much controversial stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't mind when I'm wrong. I don't like being right.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, look, I like to say too that I the same way where I might say some things, but I hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah, I never expected Biden to die of old age.
Right. But with that, guys, any final thoughts here before we close out?
The only thing I want to say is that we are saying goodbye to StreamYard on Sunday.
Yeah.
It'll be our last StreamYard show, and so it'll be some sort of extravaganza where we're going to look at all kinds of videos and things like that highlight the capabilities of StreamYard that I will no longer be doing. So, the little vignettes that introduce the different segments that are on the wheel of topics. I don't know if that's going to come with us to the new place or not, but limited guests are coming. No more 10 guest streams, possibly no more 3-hour streams. Definitely a lot less video packages coming up. So we'll be doing a lot of that on Sunday to say goodbye to StreamYard and their very expensive setup. So,
yeah, those prices they raise, man.
And they haven't even announced it yet. There's a lot of people saying that.
We got they haven't announced it, but people who are on got an email, so that was nice. Fuck you, StreamYard.
Thanks, StreamYard.
I didn't get the email. I just saw the pricing.
I got an email saying we're going to be upping your price, and here's what it includes, and it's double what you pay now. And okay,
for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, they upped a couple things, but it's not worth it. And I've already found another site. I'll send you Rosales that literally does everything StreamYard does, plus more. The only thing that it doesn't have is the storage. So you get the $25 plan, same exact stuff, plus a little more. You can have 12 participants on screen and all these other things.
But you're talking about EV Mux.
But but instead of 50 gigabytes, you get 20.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, that's fine because I'm deleting it from the system anyways. It's all on YouTube, and I can download it from there. It's on my computer, my drives. So I don't really need their storage, it is definitely it's a good deal. The EV Mux is what I'm looking at that I think is what we'll be switching to.
Is that the annual price though? I mean, you got to pay up front for the full year.
No, individual is $25 a month, but their zero plan includes a lot of what StreamYard includes. The only thing that their free plan has is you have to have their logo, like StreamYard does, and you get 3 gigabytes of storage. even then, you could survive off that if you don't hate the. I don't want their logo, so I'll pay the $25. But
yeah.
So like it's still pretty much the same deal, but with a couple other upgrades and stuff, 1080p, all that type of stuff.
I think Joker's going with Restream.
Right.
Yeah. And if you, I think you're limited to 6 on their basic plan.
Yeah.
And that won't necessarily be an issue if you go with OBS Studio and a specific website. You can kind of do an end around to have as many people as you want in a group. So you just include OBS as one of your studio cameras, and you kind of work that way around. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interest. I think it's still going to, we adapt. It's going to be a transition. We transition to the format we got right now. We'll make it work, and it'll be just as exciting, although totally different. I've been doing seasons, so we're going to call this season 2. We've been on for a few years, but we'll call this season 2 since we're getting a new home studio. So
sounds good.
It'll be exciting. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Make sure and check out Rosella's comics on Sundays for the Sunday wrap up, and you can check that out. Babe, you got anything going on?
Yeah, the 27th of October, we'll be doing a Halloween tournament, villains versus villains, with some final girls mixed in there, and some not so final girls, some crazy bitches. So that'll be fun. Everyone can come. Everyone's invited. I mean, Rosales, if you want to come on, you're more than welcome.
Sounds like a great time.
It's a Halloween tournament stream. I did one a few years ago. It did not go the way I planned. So hopefully there's justice for this one. And hopefully Michael will make it at least to the preliminaries. But, that and, just horror reviews. Like we're doing a lot of horror spotlights right now, mainly. So check that out. Compatible Cinema.
Yeah, you can find all the links below in the description. I added them and stuff. And then, obviously, guys, tomorrow we've got our big interview with Tim from the New Evangelicals talking about Trump nationalism. We'll probably talk a little bit about this debate and a couple other things involved in that realm. We've got Hard Focus on Thursday with Cole and Gray Pape talking about Rian Johnson and his filmography. And then Friday, we're topping it off with an interview with myself and Tyler Roberts from not Pop Culture Corner anymore, but UFO disclosures, conspiracies, and more in his new film. So yeah, a lot of new stuff coming this week. With that, everybody, I want to say thank you to all of our guests. Oh yeah,
you're forgetting something.
Oh no, I have a thing for it at the end. Don't worry. But with that, I want to thank all of our guests. Babe, Bradley, thank you for being here. My better half. Rosales, thank you so much for coming on. As we pride ourselves on this show, as I said, being able to talk about things from different perspectives and different views. And
I love being the token.
Yeah, right. Bob, you left you, man. He left you on your own.
You left me hanging.
I know. But yeah, you're more than welcome anytime. To our ex-viewers and Twitter viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you see, we are on every single week. So you can check us out on the YouTube channel, subscribe there, put on the notification bells and all that fun stuff and more. With that, we like to end the stream this month. We're going to be doing this all month. I do have a short film coming out at the end of the month that I've produced, assistant directed, and have a small role in, as well as Bradley having a small role in as well. So we're going to end it with a little teaser for that. You can check that out on the channel at the end of the month. A lot of promotion will be going on for that. So if you like Scream, if you like horror, and if you're into some fan films, this just might be for you. Thank you to everybody for being here and for tuning in. We'll see you all next week, and coming soon to Borderland Studios.
It's been a long time. I was left for dead. All these kids playing murderer. Time to remind them who the real Woodsboro killer is. My awakening starts